People were dying before her eyes. Servants who had been alive yesterday were now lying on the floor, with their severed legs scattered around them. And even the father died in a horrible way. One of his eyes turned into an empty socket, and blood flowed down his face. Also, his body was pierced by a sword. But Vallette doesn't really feel sorry for them. The servants and father brought this on themselves. Vallette couldn't speak or move because of magic. No matter how hard she tried, the only thing that moved by her will was her eyes. Years ago, she was reborn as the secondary villain of this novel. And now the man in front of her with a beautiful smile, bloody eyes, and silvery white hair. He laughed. But no matter how cute, this is a real villain. The maids ran screaming through the open door, begging for salvation, but their cries instantly died down. This crazy monster silenced them with just one look. Ewan then looked at the valet with a smile. It seems she was bored. He stroked the lady's face and asked her to wait a little, because she was the most exquisite main dish. With just one snap of his fingers, he used magic to pierce all the servants who were still alive with ice spears. Vallette couldn't move, so she couldn't see what was happening behind her. But she heard how after the murder, Reinhardt calmed down and began to smile and spin like a dancer, approaching her. Vallette knew that this could happen, so she told her father to get rid of the negs a long time ago. But no one listened to her, and in the end they all died. Suddenly, and many began to move with the help of magic. And she fell because she still could not control her body. But she fell right into the arms of this madman, stroked her hair and laughed because, "Madam, please time I begged my stupid father to get rid of him." And now she hugs him. It seems he removed the magic sharks from her, so Vallette pushed him away from herself. She was the last one he was going to kill and knew that even if she tried to escape, the only way out would be blocked by the mages. Reinhardt asked if she wanted to live. Vallette was surprised by such a question, and then again she could not control her body and began to walk somewhere. She walked through the blood and remains of the people she had just killed. And eventually she fell, and this madman continued to laugh. The whole family in the novel was exterminated, and Vallette knew about it in advance. So in order to avoid death, she begged her father to get rid of this crazy slave, but he refused. And all the people in the palace ignored him and treated him recklessly. Only Vallette knew that he was a crazy villain from a novel. Perhaps the situation was inevitable from the very beginning. Reinhardt looked at the pendant, Jack's, which caused him great disgust. This pendant was given to Vallette by his father, and this is the seal bead placed on Reinhardt's heart. If you squeeze it harder, the seal engraved on the slave's heart will cause incredible pain, making it impossible to resist other people's commands. But this no longer applies to Reinhardt because he became an archmage. Vallette didn't want to use her magic in front of him, but she had no choice. She really wanted to escape. She mastered the magic of summoning spirits and summoned the supreme spirit of the wind, Jin. He was unhappy that he was called to such a bloody place, but Vallette asked him to move her away from here to no matter where, and as a price she even offered her blood. Only he agreed, and already began to carry out her request. Vallette fell, clutching her heart in pain. Reinhardt came up to her and apologized for having to do this. He just didn't expect that she would turn out to be a medium and want to run away. And now he was apologizing for the fact that she was in so much pain. As it turned out, Reinhardt removed the seal that was placed on his heart, and then transferred the seal to Vallette's heart because he was afraid that she would leave him and go away. Vallette was in incredible pain, and then her eyes began to close and she fell asleep. Reinhardt asked to say his name, and only when she fulfilled the request, she was able to fall asleep. 11 years ago, a father brought home a bloody boy. 9-year-old Vallette Delight was not interested in this boy, but father said that he picked him up on the battlefield, especially for his daughter, so that he would become a good servant for her because he has a beautiful face. Vallette looked with pity at the bloody child who looked as if he was about to die. She said that there is no need for such a servant, and besides, she had such an anxious feeling as if she had already seen this child. Father said that she needs this servant because she will become the future empress to prove her usefulness to the family. Vallette did not have any abilities in the novel. This father was uninteresting all his life. But with her past memories, the girl was reincarnated into this minor villain of the novel. Her death was terrible in the arms of her beloved villain. But unlike the real Jack who had no abilities, this girl was reincarnated in a world where high-class alchemists are priceless. Vallette was already worried about her father's obsession and therefore could not tell him that she was a medium. She looked at this slave with pity. Without handcuffs, he could have escaped. But now he is in such a terrible state that he definitely won't be able to do anything. The father said that if this slave does not obey the knave, then it must squeeze this bead, in which the seal is engraved, which is placed on the heart of this slave so that he will never disobey. Vallette took the pendant, of course, but she never intended to use such a barbaric thing. Father is too heartless a person who deserves to die. Just because Count Delight brought the future Lord of the Magic Tower as a slave, the whole family would be doomed. Vallette remembered this. Although many years had passed in her life here, she immediately recognized Reinhardt by his pale skin, scarlet eyes, and long silver hair. In the original novel, Vallette immediately fell in love with him because everything about him was unusually beautiful. Reinhardt is the future Great Mage and the ruler of the Magic Tower, who easily defeated even the main character of the story. The villain who gave the main character pointless tests and then lost interest and killed her is obviously Reinhardt. Vallette ordered the maid to give this boy first aid, but as it turned out, no one helped him. She ordered to call a doctor because at this rate the boy would not survive long, but she was refused because it was too wasteful to call a doctor, especially since the boy would survive anyway, even if he was left without help. Vallette did not ask for an opinion. She gave the order to call a doctor, and the maid could not obey because she was afraid of the Count. She felt sorry for this boy should he suffer in torment just because he is a slave. And I also wonder if sleeping magicians are powerless. In the original novel, Vallette treated Reinhardt as a lover, not a slave, and then Reinhardt only used her until he awakened all his powers. Vallette loved him very much and was ready to follow him anywhere as soon as he took revenge on her entire family. She so wanted to run away with him, but the problem was that he didn't love her. I even remember what might happen in the future. Vallette still felt sorry for this boy, even though he will become a villain. Now he is just suffering. She decided to use alchemy and make him a healing potion, although she could be locked in prison if her father found out that she used her alchemy skills, but she could not watch Reinhardt suffer. She took the necessary ingredients for alchemy and drew an alchemical magic circle. At night, she quietly came to Reinhardt's room and was going to just pour the potion on his wound and leave without him seeing it. His whole body was covered with deep wounds, so she removed the bandages and poured out the medicine. It would be more effective if he drank it, but even so it will be fine. Vallette did everything she could with the hope that Reinhardt would quickly recover and escape from here. She didn't want him to die, but she didn't even know then that he wasn't actually sleeping. The sun hadn't even set yet when Vallette had to wake up from a loud scream. She saw her father, and for some reason he was very angry. Vallette immediately woke up and sat down on the bed diligently. Her father hit her hard for daring to use alchemy on this worthless slave. Since he already knows everything, there is no point in trying to lie. Vallette said that the boy died without help. But her father told her not to use alchemy without permission, and she ignored his order. She didn't even think that she would be caught so quickly. All she could do now was apologize. The life of the valet is her gift clothes, and even, yes, everything belongs to the father, but she still tries to resist it, is very stupid. Vallette tried to tell her father something that could calm him down, and he didn't hit her as hard as usual. She politely apologized and said that she couldn't let the slave die, because he was a gift from her father. This calmed him down a little, but it is still a sin to use the gift without his father's permission. As a punishment, he forbade his daughter to leave her room today and left her without food. Vallette was fine for just one day, but she would be able to help this boy escape in a few days when he got better. The rights will not leave the valet alone if you find out that she let this slave go, but with her power, she will definitely not die. But then he never escaped, and years have passed since then. And Reinhardt became her servant. Every morning he came to wake up the lady. Vallette saw him so often that it began to irritate her. And when he got so close to her, it became scary. It seems like he was trying to seduce her after all the refusals. All these years, Vallette tried to get rid of the Rain Horde, but everything turned out to be useless. She asked why he did not leave when she was ready to help, but he said that the servant would go nowhere. Vallette saw everything in his sad eyes, but Reinhardt seems to think that the friendly voice will compensate for everything. Vallette knew that the servants were ignoring and mistreating the Reinhardt, and she knew that it would end in a bloody massacre if it continued like this. And Reinhardt didn't understand why the lady was constantly trying to get rid of him when he treated her so well. Vallette didn't want to die, but the only excuse she gave was that she didn't need a slave servant. She was ready to help him escape at any moment. But Reinhardt really liked the lady, so he chose to stay with her. Vallette cannot be fooled by such words. Today she will have a meeting with the Crown Prince because the engagement ceremony is approaching. It was disgusting to think that she had to marry someone she had only seen a few times in her life. Vallette hated it, but obviously there was no choice. Today she didn't want to wake up, but Reinhardt continued to wake her up without knowing about it. After a while, Vallette was ready for the meeting, but her corset was tightened so tightly that it was difficult to breathe. but she looked flawless as befits a lady. But Reinhardt looked great in any clothes. He glows no matter what piece of fabric he's wearing. It's very sad that this villain's appearance is like a weapon, and Vallette has been thinking about it since childhood. When he was waiting for the mistress, a maid passed by. She ordered him to get out of here and started throwing mud at him. She didn't understand at all why the mistress treated him so well. Vallette looked at this and saw Reinhardt's black rage gradually flourishing and slowly growing. A beautiful carriage drove up and the coachman was about to seat the servant in front. But when Vallette said that Reinhardt would go with her inside, it caused a lot of indignation. However, no one could disobey her order. Although everyone felt hatred towards this slave, the coachman walked away for a moment and said something to Ray as they walked, and then pushed him so that he would return back to the lady. Vallette looked at this with disappointment because she knew that this would only help the hatred grow. It's really hard for her to watch such actions, but she remained silent. Vallette said that Reinhardt would go with her in the carriage, but as soon as they started driving, for some reason he sat on the floor. Vallette asked why he was doing this, and with a smile, Reinhardt said, "The beautiful coachman said that slaves should know their place." It was obvious how unhappy and upset he was when this happened. It was immediately noticeable because Reinhardt spoke in an informal manner or showed it with his whole appearance. Vallette told him to sit on the seat because no one was looking inside the carriage anyway. He could sit on the floor when they arrived at the palace. And then Reinhardt asked the lady to sit next to her and lean on her shoulder. It was very strange. It seems he lacks affection. He always comes to Vallette for warm hugs when he is upset. But the funniest thing is that Vallette continues to indulge his desires. Maybe they are tired of it. But the silence with such an atmosphere is very pleasant. When they arrived at the Imperial Palace, Reinhardt got out and sat in front of the carriage so that the lady could use him as a step. But Vallette was afraid to step on him, imagining how in the future he would break her legs. She ordered the coachman to bring a log because she doesn't like walking on people. Reinhardt looked upset. It seems the lady doesn't like him very much. It was offensive. But then, when he smiled, it was difficult to understand whether he was upset or not because he was not used as a step. Reinhardt didn't even know why they had come to the Imperial Palace, but he had to walk with the lady. She said that the Crown Prince invited her to meet him before the official announcement of the engagement. This must be another request from the elders. It's a normal meeting before the engagement, but for some reason the Imperial Prince makes such an important event out of it. And Vallette doesn't even know if she will be alive when this wall comes of age, so she was indifferent to everything. Milrod Schellens, the Crown Prince of the Empire, despite all the coldness of his bride, always smiled at her. They sat down at a small table to talk, but there was one thing that was very annoying. Reinhardt had to sit on his knees next to Vallette. It was very awkward considering that he had the right to stay near the carriage. The prince said that because of the knave he had refused all the other girls, and he really hoped that after the engagement they would be able to get along as friends. He had a very good opinion of the knave. He decided to get closer to her, and even allowed her to call him by his first name. This guy is too energetic even though it is a marriage of convenience. He said that the engagement ceremony will take place on the last day of the year, and Vallette can say if there is anything needed, even if it is some kind of gift for our engagement. The knave had no special wishes. She hoped that the prince himself would take care of everything at his own discretion. Even though it's a political marriage, why is the prince acting so sweet? He's definitely not like Reinhardt, who also acts sweet but has wild eyes. Count Delight made such a good and strong impression on those around him that no one even knew what kind of person he really was. Everyone thinks that he values and loves his daughter very much and gave her everything he wanted. But it is not so. In fact, the only thing she really wants is to take off the bracelet from her wrist, the bracelet with which her father watches her. She cannot breathe and feels that her soul leaves her when she looks at this bracelet. Milrod became very agitated as he watched the Jack's gaze darting about. To lighten the mood a little, he suggested she take a walk. They say alchemists listen to the voices of plants, and the Imperial garden is well maintained and she will definitely like it. Reinhardt bowed his head and followed them. But although his face looked indifferent, inside him everything was raging because Vallette and the prince were holding hands. After some time, when she returned home, she was looking for the key to get into the workshop. She had no idea where her father hid this key. In her youth, after she used her alchemical gift on Reinhardt, her father moved her to a workshop in the basement and locked it with a key. She could not use it without his permission or order. Reinhardt asked the lady with such nasty sarcasm for whom she would try this time. The broken bird? Or did she find an ant with a broken leg? Vallette does not feel any attachment to her family because she knows the future. They will die soon anyway. It will hurt her if she gets attached to them. So it never calls anyone by name, even Reinhardt. And with animals, everything is much simpler because they are just living creatures passing by. But Reinhardt did not understand why the lady pays attention to animals, but is so indifferent to people. He took the lady to the workshop. She didn't understand why because they didn't have a key. Vallette was sure that he had not yet acquired all his strength. But it seemed that magic was so easy for him that with just a snap of his finger he removed the lock. Maybe he just doesn't reveal all his magic to the lady. All this is interesting, of course, but she had to do some quick alchemy right now. It was really easy for her to draw alchemical circles and use this magic. Reinhardt never took his eyes off the Jack of the Ancients for a moment. The magic circle floated before his eyes, and the room filled with purple light. The moment when the herbs turned into a potion was always amazing. Vallette went to the garden. She used the potion on the cat and felt relieved when it worked. Vallette never accepted Reinhardt's help, but the radio of an ordinary cat allowed her to help open the lock. It didn't matter to her that everything was okay with the cat. However, here's the bad luck. The father saw his daughter and considered it suspicious that she was sitting on earth in the garden. When she came up to greet him, his father noticed the cat continuing to rub against her dress. The count was furious and immediately realized that she was using her alchemical abilities again. He came here because he already knew about it. Apparently, one of the servants reported it to him. It's all because Vallette was careless. She doesn't notice anyone except Reinhardt, and so she had no choice but to take the blow again. And then her father even ordered her to be locked in a dungeon and given nothing but water for a whole week. It was too expected for the knave, so she was not surprised she was not indignant and did not resist. The maids seemed to laugh at her. Everything was fine, but for some reason Reinhardt looked at her strangely. It seemed as if he noticed something he had never seen before. Then, when she was already heading to the dungeon, she realized that for the first time she saw his real emotions. She spent a week in the dungeon, very exhausted. Vallette thought that she would get used to it since this was not the first time, but still, a week of such punishment was too much. Came to her and said that this was the last time she could behave like this. But if she continues again and obeys his orders, then the punishment will be even worse than this. Vallette was glad that it was finally over. She returned to the mansion and told the maid to bring soup to the room. Only now she wondered what was wrong with Reinhardt. All this time, he usually visited Vallette in prison at least once, but this time he never came. Returning to the room in the mirror, she saw her emaciated body. The bones were picked out even on her face. She looked terrible. But this was expected from a week of fasting. After she took a bath and even changed her clothes, she remembered Reinhardt again. It was strange that he still hadn't come to her. Did he really escape from the palace or die? Any option is good, but Vallette would like him to live the way he wants. And then behind the door, she heard a familiar voice. It was Reinhardt. He, still here without entering the room. He asked the lady how she was feeling and was glad that she was okay. Now he did not dare to enter the room. But he told her that the two maids who dared to laugh at the mistress were dead. An accident, they fell out of the window. Whether it was an accident or not, only Reinhardt knows. For now, it's enough for him to kill just one or two people, but has he ever touched them? There's something strange about that. Something must have happened because Reinhardt asked the lady for permission to enter the room and hug her. These words were always like a signal, so she did not refuse. However, she was shocked when she saw his body. Bandages were visible from under his clothes, and exposed parts of his body were covered in bruises. He approached the lady and hugged her knees. Although it looked stupid, Vallette did not restrain Reinhardt. To be honest, they both feel bad now. Reinhardt didn't complain to her, and she didn't console him. Because the silence between them is the only consolation they can give each other, and it has always been that way. It's been years since the wounded Reinhardt desperately clung to her. Time has flown by very quickly. When she wanted to go somewhere, Reinhardt could get upset if she forgot to put on the red bead with which she could control him. Vallette held back in her answers, but he continued to cling to her. All these years, Vallette listened to her father, but soon her time will come. Today, she was going to go to the market to buy medicinal herbs. Reinhardt wanted to go with her, but he received a very sharp refusal. He saw that recently she had been trying to leave him at home or, on the contrary, send him somewhere, and this really upset him. Sometimes he even had thoughts that he could wring her fragile neck and she would die in just a second, at which point his facial expression did not even change. But Vallette always felt it, and her body was covered in goosebumps of fear. But Reina was not going to kill her. He did not like the thought that he might not see or hear her again if she died. However, this death wish was putting a lot of pressure on Vallette. She didn't want it to continue like this. It was very dangerous, and she wanted to get rid of Reinhardt by any means necessary. Something strange happened last night when she was already asleep. She heard someone talking. There were several voices which became unusual, so she woke up and decided to check where the sound was coming from. It seemed to be from the next room, and then she heard a quiet conversation. It was him talking to some magicians. They were going to get him out of here, and so that he would live in the tower until he gained strength. Vallette didn't expect that they would meet so quickly. There was no such thing in the novel, but still. This day came. The only thing she could do was pretend that she hadn't heard anything. Sam and Reinhardt had already met his henchman, so he needed to get rid of him as soon as possible. Vallette was going to go to her father tomorrow and talk to him. After all, the faster Reinhardt goes to the tower, the faster he will gain strength and kill everyone here. But Vallette rapes the bracelet that will not let her die. She thought that her father would take it off as soon as she came of age, but this did not happen. Vallette told Reinhardt that she was going to the market for herbs, but in fact she was lying. She was going to her father and was going to persuade him to get rid of Reinhardt, but she had not yet figured out how to be convincing enough. Early in the morning, she came to her father's office and looked at her clothes with disgust, because he told her to dress decently even at home. But now she looks somehow not very good. Soon, she will be the crown princess, so she must always take care of herself. He was ready to send her back to her room just to change her clothes. Vallette said that she wanted to talk about her servant and father. This made them angry. They had already talked about this many times, so this was just a waste of time. Her father said he would send this servant away as soon as she got married, but it was too late. He told her to wait just 1 year because she would soon be out. That was what father always said. He never listened to Vallette. No matter how hard she tried, apparently she couldn't escape fate. She decided to at least ask when she could take off this bracelet, because she would be ridiculed if she went out to the Imperial Palace with something like that. Father again said that it was for her safety and he would remove the bracelet as soon as she was safely married. It was disgusting from such security. It is clear that he put it on, but it is not necessary so that she does not run away. He still considers her a little girl. Vallette finished the conversation and was about to leave the room, but as soon as she opened the door, she saw Reinhardt in front of her. What is he doing here? It seems he heard the whole conversation. A second later, a fake smile appeared on his face. As usual, he hid his emotions. Mate, and then he didn't go to the count for some reason. He started going after the jack, which once again confirms that he was simply eavesdropping on their conversation. He continued to call her mistress, although she said the opposite and gave him many opportunities to escape. She just prayed that he would forget about her already. Everyone living in the palace treated Reinhardt badly. No one here will survive for sure. Although Vallette did everything she could, she came to him as best she could and gave him a bead and a map, thanks to which he could escape and not get lost. But Reinhardt did not accept her help. She did everything possible. But his cold look and false smile did not disappear. Reinhardt was worried that the lady hated him. He didn't understand why, because he hadn't done anything bad to her. Even though he calls her mistress, and here he is hinting that for him, she is nothing more than a small bug under his feet. Vallette said that it's not quite true. In fact, Reinhardt doesn't look that scary. But what scares her the most is this premonition of death. Reinhardt was upset no matter how hard he tried to behave. The lady found him disgusting. He approached her so abruptly and touched her neck with his thumb. She was very tense, and when she turned around, Reinhardt just smiled and then left, and Vallette breathed a sigh of relief. Her legs even gave way from fear. It seemed as if she was going crazy. She went to her classes. It was another boring dance lesson as the wedding approached. The classes became more and more frequent. Vallette was as impeccable as always, even though she didn't have enough time to rest. Now she often goes to tea parties and receives gifts, and regularly sees the crown prince. At first, she didn't want to get married at all, but over time she even got used to him. But eventually realized that he is not a bad person, but it is still a political marriage. In any case, very soon she will become an adult, and in this peaceful palace on her birthday, there will be a mass murder. She certainly hopes that her efforts will bear some fruit. Vallette has a lot of thoughts in her head. She doesn't know what will happen to her next. As soon as her birthday arrived, surprisingly, nothing happened. She spent the day as usual and was going to have dinner in her room. But all day she was worried about Reinhardt. She asked the maid what he was doing. Well, as it turns out, many consider him a good servant, and now many maids behave nicely with him. Vallette was a little surprised. And why is he still here anyway? It's already been a day when he should have woken up and gained power. But why hasn't he gone to the tower? The maid said that Reinhardt was now serving the count and doing small errands around the house, such as cleaning the stables. But lately the count has been too harsh with him. The maid was embarrassed to say this, but she told him that the Count had been harassing Reinhardt and he had rebelled. Vallette was in shock. She did not expect such a father. And recently the servants began to notice Reinhardt's swollen face because he was beaten. This happened somewhere around the day before the valet's birthday. I didn't even know because it was never mentioned in the novel. This has definitely never happened before. This Count delight is just unbearable. The day was coming to an end, and Vallette went to bed with the hope that the birthday had passed peacefully. Satsos, or reforce in a frison. But at night the guards noticed bloody footprints all over the area that led straight to the mansion. It was so disgusting. But the guard, although he was afraid, still went inside. Everything around was covered in blood. Suskin, when he entered the dining room, she saw that the entire table was littered with fresh corpses of workers. Vallette couldn't survive then either. But it was all just a dream. Or rather, these are the original events of the novel. But now everything is completely different from how it should be. Vallette can be reborn. So there is uncertainty whether this is a dream or reality, and she does not know whether she will die like in the novel If so, then I already feel very sorry for them that she treated Reinhardt so well. But it wasn't for nothing that she tried. She hoped that he would eventually gain his power and go to the Tower of Magicians and not bother anyone. Then she would no longer have any contact with him and would live peacefully. Her birthday was over, so she felt relieved that she was still alive and even a few days had passed. But after this terrible dream, she could not fall asleep again. Besides, she was hungry because the maid did not bring her food in the evening. Then Vallette decided to go out at night and go to the kitchen to eat. It's strange, but there was no one in the corridor at all. At least, there was someone. And in general, for the first time together, there was such deathly silence. Although this was the most secluded place in the estate, there was no one here at all now. Vallette thought that there was dinner with her father, and he forbade all the servants to leave because he often behaves like that. But for some reason, she still felt uneasy. Unlike Roman, a week had already passed. At least Vallette is not obsessed with Reinhardt and is not crazy about him. In this world, everything will not be like a story from a novel. Vallette has no reason to worry, but she can't. Nothing has happened this whole week, but she continues to be very afraid. Nervously, she approached the dining room and leaned against the door to listen. She foolishly hoped that the date of the massacre had not been moved up a week. I didn't hear any screams from the dining room, and then I felt relief. But as soon as I slightly opened the door, I felt a sharp smell of blood and the doors immediately closed. And because of the bright light of the chandelier, she was blinded, so she didn't see what was happening there. But now she hoped that it just seemed to her. And all this because of excitement, she imagined the worst outcome. She decided to just sleep and go back to her room, because all these fantasies were probably due to lack of sleep. But before she could leave, the doors from the dining room opened, and at that moment she froze in place. She could not help but clean and turn around. Although behind her she felt something terrifying and terrible. Reinhardt asked the lady why she didn't go inside. If he had known that she wasn't sleeping, he would have definitely invited her. Vallette was hungry, but she didn't go in because she changed her mind and decided to sleep. Reinhardt realized that the girl he had just drunk was the mistress's maid, who had never brought the food. If he had known, he would have left her alive. She screamed and looked so loud that he didn't even think about it. Vallette raised her hands with difficulty and horror and brought it to her face. She heard approaching footsteps. Reinhardt asked the lady to turn around and look at him and not avoid him, because he had been waiting for this moment for so long. Or he will turn her head strongly, but will be very upset if he accidentally breaks her neck. Vallette told him to continue his business, but leave her alone. And Reinhardt laughed. His mistress is always so cold and heartless to everyone, I wonder why. Vallette had already imagined the worst thing that could happen 1,000 times. So even if it happened right before her eyes, she still wouldn't say anything about it. But then she felt the back of her head suddenly become cold, as if all the blood had flowed out somewhere. And then she slowly raised her head and turned evenly to Reinhardt. She saw his creepy red eyes and he gently stroked her hair. He closed the dining room so that the lady would not hear anything while she was sleeping, but apparently this was unnecessary. She made an unfortunate mistake when she woke up. Since she looked into the dining room, she should see the whole thing. He put his dark cape on her, the lower part of which was wet and dirty with blood. Vallette tried her best not to look down and did as if she did not notice this. She just waited for the end. He just didn't want her to get dirty in his presence. He also dulled her sense of smell with magic so that the smell of blood wouldn't be felt. His gentle voice was as always a game, but the fact that there was absolutely no smile in his eyes caused incredible concern. He hugged her by the shoulder and gently pushed her forward. Vallette didn't want to go inside. She stood there unable to move, but then she heard a quiet laugh. Reinhardt snapped his fingers and then Vallette began to move against the pain. Now it was funny that she was obeying the servant she was trying so hard to get rid of. That's why she hurt his fragile heart. She always told father that Ukraine is useless, so he decided to prove his usefulness to her, just as the mistress wanted. Vallette has already regretted 100 times that she begged her father to get rid of this guy, because it turned out to be useless anyway, and now she has only bought the situation. The gold bracelet on her hand shattered into pieces. Vallette was shocked. She didn't understand what was happening at all. When he had complete control over her body, he opened the doors and entered the room with her. Vallette did not expect to see such horror. Everyone was killed with particular cruelty. Suddenly, some maid at least grabbed Vallette. It was unexpected because she thought that everyone here had died. It was the maid who had served Vallette since childhood, and she begged her mistress for salvation. But Vallette knew that she couldn't help in any way because she was still alive only because she was Reinhardt's main dish, and very soon she would also die. She walked a little further into the hall and saw her father. It was very disgusting. He was still alive. His only whole class immediately looked at her. The Count's arms and legs were crushed by knives used to cut meat, and one eye socket was empty. Vallette didn't understand what Reinhardt was trying to tell the poor thing. His face was a simple smile as if he hadn't finished slaughtering the pig. Reinhardt apologized to the lady for the fact that she had to hear such dirty words and see all this because he was going to deal with the Count tomorrow morning. The lady just happened to be here earlier. Reinhardt said he had recently tried to give him sex education, so now he was just paying him back for it. The Count slapped Reinhardt on the cheek, and then his decrepit member stood up when he looked at it. Reinhardt cut out his tongue, which he had been licking his lips with. Reinhardt couldn't do otherwise because the Count was encroaching on what belonged to the lady. But Vallette said that it was obvious that his father had dragged him here for this very purpose. Reinhardt just smiled. He would have accepted the lady's help if she had protected him. But that didn't happen. Vallette didn't understand why he was trying to take revenge on her now. After all, she hadn't done anything bad. She had done everything she could for him, and he would have run away from here if he had taken the opportunity. Reinhardt was upset forever, was true amount of mistress, but she always tried to push him away. Vallette knew that all this time in the estate, every action Reinhardt had taken was a trick. Since he was going to kill her anyway, she decided to just say it all. She said that she tried to get rid of Reinhardt because everything about him was a lie. Reinhardt ignored this because his mistress is too kind and does not like such entertainment. He himself will take care of finishing together and, for example, tearing out of the pulley from the Count. Vallette will be the last one, so you just need to wait for this moment. In the end, she will die anyway. After a while, two men in robes grabbed the remaining servants and pushed them into the dining room. Reinhardt said, "You have a chance to hear if they can get out of this cafeteria." But naturally, it was impossible. He dealt with each of them in turn in the most brutal ways. He remembered every person who had done him any harm. For example, this maid kicked him with her foot, saying that he was a loser. So he tore off her legs and left her to suffer until she died. And then he slowly recounted everything that the servants had done to him over the past years. He didn't even think about turning a blind eye to their spitting treatment. Vallette listened to this and was more and more shocked. He didn't say anything like that in the novel. Apparently, she changed the story. She was glad that she did not feel any affection for these people who were now dying one after another. So she tried not to feel compassion for them. But it was still very disgusting and repulsive to watch this bloody mess. Fortunately, Reinhardt blocked her sense of smell, so everything around looked like a movie. And then she saw how her own father was killed. But all this was indifferent. The dining room doors opened again, and the people in robes threw the last living people from behind this mansion into the dining room. Reinhardt decided to hit them all at once. Dealing with each one in turn would have taken too long. Vallette even envied them. In any case, they died with just one blow. And now she was the last one left, and Reinhardt approached her with such a sweet smile. As a result, the girl lost consciousness, unable to bear the shock of fatigue and pain in her heart that had washed over her. She fell, and all her clothes were stained with blood. Reinhardt was nearby. He just watched her, but for some reason he didn't clean up. Although it seemed like he was going to do it. Two magicians, Salon and Quint, approached him. These men were very handsome. They were interested in why the gentleman had not yet killed this girl. Reinhardt still couldn't decide what to do with her. So one of the magicians suggested just leaving her alive and subjugating her by force, because she has the old alchemy and the ability to summon spirits. These words puzzled him a little, although Reinhardt could easily have done so. If she doesn't belong to him, then he can at least keep her body. Reinhardt asked, Salon, is it possible to live with people for years without calling them by name? Even once? The magician said that there is nothing difficult about it, but it is rare to meet and there must be reasons for it. But Vallette Delight considered it she never called by name and did not remember names. Although no, she remembered only Reinhardt's name, but she never said it out loud, and he still really wants to know the reason. However, he will do it later because now they have little. He took the mistress in his arms. The magicians asked the master why he didn't kill everyone a week ago, as I was planning to, and the reason for Reinhardt's delay was his hostess's birthday. Now he was going to leave here, taking her with him. And his henchmen collected all the information about the criminal and corrective activities of Count Delight, so they scattered this around here so that when they found these corpses, it would be immediately clear what was what. They were going to return to the magic tower, but the magic protested because with the abilities of this girl, this is the wrong decision because it is difficult to get into the magic tower without being a magician. Moreover, this girl will not be able to leave the tower because she does not have mana. Reinhardt was very happy. It would be good if she couldn't leave him anywhere. After some time, having learned about the bloody massacre of the nobles, the Empire was horrified. Rumors immediately began to spread about the disappearance of the Jack. The Imperial family began an investigation to find out the truth. And so it ended in a painful night. And so they teleported to someplace it was a forest didn't even know where to go because he had never been to a magic tower. Magicians told him that your day is right above. She was floating high in the air. Now Reinhardt had his last chance to refuse Vallette. But he did not do it because she was his mistress for years, and he wanted to change roles with her. With ease, they teleported to the magic tower where they were met by some masked man. This is the tower's watchdog, who will be loyal only to Reinhardt because he has already become the master of this place. Reinhardt ordered that this guard stripe take him to the most beautiful, spacious bright room from which it would be impossible to escape. And then with just a snap of his finger, he opened a magic portal. The path to the magic tower can only be opened by him and the Lord. And whoever wants to get inside will have to go through the guard dog. But with the exit, everything is much easier only with Mom. You can use teleportation to leave the tower. But the girl he holds in his arms has no mana. Then she will not be able to leave the tower without permission. Magic and mediums are very different from each other. Unlike mediums, magicians draw power from the surrounding nature, and mediums ask for help from spirits and pay them for power. And the magic tower is a place created by magic, so spirits cannot appear here and the medium cannot take power. Reinhardt entered the room. It was very spacious and bright, but in this room there was only one bed where he put the lady. He was really waiting for her to wake up and how she would react to all this. An investigation was conducted at Delight's house, but Vallette was never found. The prince was very hard because of this. He immediately sent a request for cooperation to the magic tower because traces of magic were found, but they never gave an answer. And also the dark deeds of Count Delight, which were not known even to the Imperial family, were clarified. Now the crown prince understood why Vallette was so surprised when he mentioned her father. Vallette is a wise girl, and she would have run away if she had the opportunity. She could probably hide somewhere, so the principal ordered to search the estate again and find out if she had managed to escape. Strange rumors are spreading in the news because what she did has not been found yet, and rumors that Vallette killed her father. She is the only survivor missing. Moreover, they confirmed the cruel treatment of Count Delight to his daughter. It is not surprising that people easily believed it. But the principal knows that Vallette could not have committed the murder. It is simply impossible. After all, her servant also disappeared, so they probably ran away together. Well, what's strange is that on that very day a new lord appeared at the tower. If that slave is the lord of the magic tower, then it's not surprising that he killed the people who mocked him and ran away. Nothing has been heard from the magic tower for a long time, and the prince begins to worry, but he still intends to save the knave. If she is still alive. Vallette again dreamed of a scene from the novel, where she was so possessed by jealousy that she used that bead to cause terrible pain to Reinhardt. And all because she found out that today he was with the maid, she thought that he could cheat on her. Reinhardt was incredibly angry, but he had to hide his emotions. He said that he didn't need anyone except his mistress and that he loved only her. Vallette believed this. She was sure that he loved her as much as she loved him. So she had to accept that she was causing him such pain. Yes, that's how it was. And then he just killed her with the same smile on his face. Vallette woke up in horror. The reason why Reinhardt killed Vallette was because she was obsessed with him. But now she is alive apparently because she is not possessed by him. But then she wondered if she was even alive, because now she was in some strange place. She saw it for the first time and did not understand where she was. Approaching the glass wall, she could see the clouds, but she did not understand why only they were visible. The window was the whole room. She saw only the sky. And then she thought that this was the very place that the Lord of the Magic Tower described in the novel. She was even upset that she was still alive, and then she heard someone's voice. When she returned, she was scared because she saw a stranger. This man was wearing a mask. He offered her food if she was hungry, but Vallette refused. She only wanted to get out of here, or at least show her how to get out. If he entered, then he knows where the exit is. But the only thing he said is that it is impossible. This humble look and manner of speech. Vallette remembered that this was Capelius, probably the tower dog, and it was obvious that they were treating him like that. Vallette asked to let her out of here, to call a doctor or to do something, at least to call Reinhardt, but the faithful dog was silent. And as soon as she said Reinhardt's name, he immediately appeared in front of her in the room with the help of magic. He was obviously happy. The lady woke up earlier than he thought, and the first thing she did was ask to be let out of here. Reinhardt ignored these requests and offered her something to eat or drink tea, although this did not interest Vallette at all. He ordered the dog to get out, and Capelius immediately disappeared from the room. Reinhardt created a small table in this room with desserts and tea with one wave of his hand. He did not listen to Vallette at all, and although he still addressed her as a lady, she felt as if she had no choice. And when they sat down at the table, she again asked to be let out of here. Reinhardt said that she had nowhere to go anyway. But Vallette didn't care that anywhere would be better than here. Reinhardt thought otherwise, that nowhere would it be better than here. And in general, he should have killed the lady but saved the life of the only witness of what was happening in the estate. He didn't kill her only because she deviated from the established path. She avoided all the reasons why Reinhardt could kill her. And now he was finally able to ask why she did it, why she pushed him away, because he was always kind to her. Vallette perceived his kindness because he was kind to everyone because he wanted to live. He claimed that he was sincere with her, but Vallette only laughed at this. Reinhardt remembered all the times Vallette ordered the servants not to torture him, but they ignored her words. How the mistress refused to follow her father's order, but was unfairly hung upside down. So she saved the animal when he was ordered to kill it, and she even sat in prison for using alchemy. Kind lady always kept people on lock, even in unfair situation. Crazy people sometimes treated her worse than crabs to me. And all this time Reina wanted to tear them to pieces, wanted to throw them to be torn apart by beast so that they would suffer much more. And all this was not planned, starting from the emotions he felt and ending with the behavior of the lady. Everything is so unusual. Overwhelmed with emotion, he crushed the cup with his hand. He tried to win Vallette's favor, but she was so heartless that she didn't even give him a chance. Today she finally said his name and he was incredibly happy. When he didn't have magic yet, it was very difficult for him to watch her bow her head before her stupid father. He still remembers everything, but Vallette couldn't understand the reason. Reinhardt approached her and said that from now on, she would belong only to him and would be by his side. This really irritated Vallette. And in general, if he was so unhappy, then why didn't he run away since it was so hard to watch everything that was happening? Reinhardt said that he didn't run away because then he would suffer even more. Vallette doesn't know. But magic from birth has an energy that is different from the energy of ordinary people, and this energy causes discomfort and disgust in people. This is why people hate magicians without reason. It is difficult for them to accept those who are so different from them. In addition, newborn magicians are very vulnerable. But Vallette was not like other people. She always looked into Reina's eyes during conversations and listened to him, and never avoided his touch. Although the mistress did not name him, she did not name any other servants, and she never singled anyone out. Probably because in her eyes he looked the same as the others. Reinhardt did not want to run away from her. It was not difficult for him to obediently kneel down. He couldn't be there if he ran away. It's obvious that he wanted to get the mistress because she wouldn't want to be a puppet either. She hides her skills from everyone, although many people would like to get her alchemy skills. She is so naive that she has no idea about her father's intentions, that he wanted to sell her blood. After the engagement with the crown prince, the Imperial family would have forced Vallette to constantly prepare the potion after the emperor, and her father would have divided all the profits in half, and Vallette seems to have known nothing about it. Reinhardt saw all this, and from understanding, he wanted to give back to these bastards. The count received a huge sum of money from someone, Apparently, he planned to postpone the wedding and send Vallette supposedly for treatment, but in fact to use her. After all, she is an aristocrat and also knows alchemy like a hen that lays golden eggs, Vallette. Of course, she knew that her father was obsessed with money, but she didn't even think that he wanted to sell her blood. It's terrible, but Reinhardt now wants to lock her here only because it's dangerous outside. She was completely against it, and besides, she didn't know what he could do to her. He didn't intend to harm his mistress because if he wanted to, he would have killed her long ago. He said that he would let her out of this room only if she promised him not to run away. Then she easily promised it. But it was an obvious lie. He asked her to put on this bracelet. He wasn't going to track her like her father. Only the guard and the Tower Lord can enter this room, but if Vallette puts on this bracelet, she can enter and exit from here, basically move freely. And also Reinhardt will come to her anywhere if she calls his name. And he also wanted to give her a dagger with some kind of spell cast on it. It was a gift that Vallette needed to carry with her and not let go of for a second. If someone offends her here, she can just stick this dagger into their eyes and those mages will die, and rightly Hard will take full responsibility. Vallette had no intention of accepting such a gift. There was no need for it. But he made her take it. Everything went just the way he wanted according to his plan. Vallette. I was interested, but he still told me that there was a very interesting spell written on this dagger. When magicians feel their life is in danger, they don't reflexively create a shield. But this dagger can easily destroy any magic shield. And if she pierces the eyes, then these magics will not be able to resist and their mana will dissipate. So you need to aim for the eyes if she is in danger. Vallette got tired of all this. She wanted to go somewhere else and Reinhardt freely let her go, saying that she could call him at any time. He would be waiting here. When she left the room, she saw only an endless staircase. She couldn't even summon the spirit of the genie here. She went down for a very long time, and then she saw a sign for the floor. She became interested in what was behind the door, and she saw a huge library. And yet it became interesting. She decided to take a look, and it was very quiet here, but at the same time there were still people walking around magicians. Vallette thought that there was nothing special here, but she still decided to walk around and have a look. Suddenly she stopped because she heard someone talking. Magic discussed the new ruler of the tower, pale as the death of a child. They laughed because Balcha used to rule this place. Apparently it became difficult since now this child came and immediately became the ruler of the tower. And he also dragged some kind of falcon with him to the heavenly room. It seems he is crazy. Magicians call people who cannot use magic. This is an ancient word that was translated as stupid. In general, calling Vallette Sokor. They say that she is a fool. The mages were very irritated by this whole situation, and that the Lord of the Tower was still wet on his lips. He had been a slave to the family of a noble Sokor his whole life. But why didn't he run away if he had such abilities worthy of the level of the Lord of the Tower? Vallette immediately looked with fascination at these people, who would obviously soon die because of all this talk. In one line, it was written that Reinhardt from the novel already suspected that magic was unhappy with him. One magician pretended not to know Reinhardt, and then the spell of silence was immediately cast on him. After that, Reinhardt cleared the tower of unnecessary people. Vallette doesn't remember the details, but during this time he didn't appear in the tower for a long time. She left the library and decided to go further down the stairs. But then she began to have doubts that the others were descending in exactly the same way. Surely they had some other path? And there are a lot of doors here, but no one walks. Vallette tried to call some spirits again, but nothing worked, and she didn't want to go down on foot. So while I was finding it, I was just thinking about my own. Count Delight had many slaves, but now he died. So what about those slaves? No one even knew that he kept servants in his own cage to watch, or hardly anyone paid. Then all the prisoners would die there from hunger. Vallette. It would be better if she forgot all this. Then she would feel calmer not knowing about it. After a long descent, she reached the floor and was already tired. If she were to go down to the first floor like this, she would probably never reach it and would have to go back. She looked at Reinhardt's bracelet and said that she could call him anytime, but she didn't want to do what he said. Then I thought about some way to get back without the help of Reinhardt. And she remembered about Capelius. As soon as she said his name, the magic circle appeared, and the man immediately appeared in front of her. In fact, he was shocked and did not understand how she knew his name. In fact, no one knows his name, and Vallette knows only because she read the novel. Then she decided to lie that she didn't know it was his name, and it just came to her mind. But it didn't work. He knew it was a lie. In general, it is explained that she was not going to. She only asked him to take her back to the heavenly room, silently extended his hand. It was all in wounds, and it was clear how they were treating him here. 12 magicians who built a magic tower. Funny that they allow this one of the famous magicians to suffer so much. Coppelius looked at her with his red eyes. They were barely visible through the mask. The man simply did not understand how this girl knew all this. Suddenly, Reinhardt appeared. He was clearly unhappy about something. Vallette definitely didn't invite him here, so how did he end up here? It turned out that Reinhardt was with this dog all this time and she simply didn't notice him. He knew she wanted to call him, but she didn't say his name. Without further questions, he took it and teleported to the heavenly room. During the children's teleportation, it was difficult for her, so her consciousness became clouded. Her head was very dizzy. When she opened her eyes, she was already in the heavenly room. As it turned out, it was already dark. That's how she spent the whole day. Apparently, she took too long to go down and it was still useless. Reinhardt sat at her feet. He used to do this often, but now he just wanted to talk to her and find out she tried. And she called the spirit with whom she had a contract. Vallette said she didn't sign a contract with the genie and called him without a contract and asked for help. Reinhardt was actually as surprised as Vallette, because you can't summon a higher spirit without a connection. But she did it without even signing a contract. Oh, but she still won't be able to get out of the tower even with Jin. But the knave still had a few thoughts about it. Yes, she can't summon spirits inside the tower, but what if she summons him outside? Reinhardt noticed something was wrong and began to stare at her. Vallette decided to try her plan, and she called on the genie. Surprisingly, she really succeeded. The spirit was not delighted. He did not understand where he was, but this place was very unpleasant for him. Reinhardt laughed. In general, ordinary people can't do something so amazing that the lady was able to. In front of his eyes, she continues to increase her value. Ordinary interrupter cannot summon a spirit without a contract. Moreover, it is impossible to summon a spirit instead, where there is no summoner. But she was able to do it, which is probably why there is chaos in the Imperial Palace now. And they continue to investigate the magical traces. If they find out that Vallette is in the tower, they will probably immediately ask for her return, because she was going to become the crown princess. The Imperial family won't let her go so easily, and yet she is very valuable to Reinhardt, so he simply suggested killing them all, whoever they are. He can easily break their necks if they try to take Vallette. Better do it before they find out. They say that he wants to start a war. He just wants to destroy all the parasites. And the tower is also full of all sorts of bugs. He asked what would be better to pull out his teeth or cut him in the mouth. Vallette was disgusted by all this. She did not even want to discuss it. And Reinhardt thought about it and asked if she was really afraid. When he treats her kindly like now, she still bakes him. And in general, she was the only one who avoided him from the very beginning. Was it because she was afraid? She didn't notice him from the very beginning and tried to drive him away. She showed sympathy for some animals, but never for people. Reinhardt didn't understand. Didn't he deserve it? It was easier for Vallette to admit than to justify that she was really afraid of him and thought he would kill her. Reinhardt laid her on the bed and hung over her. He didn't even know how to make her understand that no matter what he did, he still couldn't kill her. All he wants is to keep her close. Vallette, you said that first of all he should stop threatening. If he really doesn't intend to kill, then he should behave differently. Yeah, but Reinhardt just laughed. She was turning him on. Vallette pushed him away from her and told him to leave, but it turned out that this was his room. Or rather, now it was their room. She said he was crazy, and Reinhardt took it as praise from her mistress. Vallette said many times that she was not his mistress, and then he decided to call her by the name Vallette. He thought that if he called her that, she would someday start calling him that too. However, this frightened her more and more. She asked him to give her a new room, but he refused and said that there were no vacancies, and even the storage room was filled to the brim. His henchmen appeared in the room. Apparently, these two were allowed to enter the room. They had some urgent matter. Got angry because he asked not to disturb him. At this time, he is very busy, but they asked him to go down and see for himself what is happening. The magician they sent to the Imperial family returned with a message. This is a very important matter. Reinhardt was irritated and had to leave his mistress. He stroked Vallette's hair and said that he would go teach his dogs good manners. In a second, they disappeared from the room and Vallette felt relieved. But apparently something serious happened there. And so they all went down to the first floor. There were many magicians gathered there. Reinhardt was obviously very unhappy. The first thing he said was that dogs should not be touched when they are eating. Then he asked if he really looked so much like a dog. The magician was silent as if his tongue had been torn out. He didn't know what to answer. He is a magician sent by the Imperial family, but he still remains a member of the Magic Tower. Reinhardt asked, "Does it look funny?" They said it doesn't. The mages called him here because they had a complaint to Mr. Reinhardt, but at the same time they claimed that they did not want to offend him. Many of the magicians wondered if Reinhardt was qualified to be the Lord of the Magic Tower, since they had heard rumors that he had given his body into slavery to score. Reinhardt asked mockingly, where did they get this from? And to whom could he give his business? They of course couldn't answer that question, but it didn't matter, and they demanded that he show his abilities if he wanted to be the Lord of the Tower. Then they heard his mad laugh. Reinhardt laughed and said that he was not going to be the Lord of Small Bugs. He did not want to be the Lord of Parasites. Everyone started shouting that this was disdain and insults for them. But Reinhardt really doesn't like the fur coat. With just a snap of his fingers, this magician began to choke and no one could help him. Others began to worry and tried to somehow stop the ruler, because usually in the Magic Tower no one acts so cruelly. But Reinhardt didn't listen to anyone and didn't even look in their direction. He just dealt with everyone who opened their mouth. First he strangled them, and then many ice shards pierced their bodies. Reinhardt had such a sweet smile on his face, he obviously liked it. Everyone was terrified and didn't dare approach anymore, and the magician, who was lying on the floor from suffocation, was still conscious. Reinhardt ordered him to get up, but he couldn't. It was funny. Reinhardt asked again what they said there. To whom did he sell his body? The magician said that she was simply mistaken, and generally said this about herself. But lying was a mistake. For this wrong answer, he experienced even more than before. He was pinned to the wall by a huge icicle. The remaining mangas were really scared. They looked at all this and said that this was really too much. Reinhardt didn't listen to them, and did the same to them. And then looked to see if there would be other people who would try to stop him. No one dared. Reinhardt extended his hand and gave the command, "Give me your paw." The tower guard came up and put his hand. He is the watchdog who guards this place, and the fact that he followed Reinhardt's commands already confirmed that he became excellent in this tower. This obedient one is much better than all the other bugs. And since he is the watchdog, Reinhardt told him to control all these bugs so that they do not go wild. Today Reinhardt was too much, so if they rebel again he will be furious. When all the conditions this lesson, Reinhardt simply used time reversal magic, and then all the damage and injury inflicted simply disappeared. They thought that such magic only existed in legends and were very surprised. But by doing so, the Lord of the Tower proved his power. They won't be given a second chance, so they have to behave well. And with these words he left. Mages started to find out which idiot from the tower said that the Lord and the tower became an inexperienced child of a low level. We were all so scared we immediately started looking for the culprit, and they were amazed by this magic. Vallette ate in her room, and for the first time in her life she was not nervous while eating. She always ate whatever she could in her room because she didn't want to be noticed by her father and the servants. It's funny that in such a situation she feels calm. But she tried to have time to eat calmly before this guy returned to the room. And then she heard some noise and saw that Jin was trying to knock on the glass. She completely forgot that she had summoned him, and now he was creepy. Last time she summoned him some kind of bloodbath and then just let him go, and even now she summoned him to some weird place and now she ignores him. He answered her call even without a contract, and she is so heartless. Vallette apologized to him and promised that this would not happen again. She said she wanted to get out of here, but this is a tower where a bunch of magicians live. Their magic prevents spirits from getting inside. Magicians are real villains who suck out natural power, such things. And this is where this real madness usually happens. It's surprising that Vallette came up with the idea of calling the spirit into a separate space, and in general it is impossible to call it without signing a contract because it is very difficult to call a spirit. The only way to summon a spirit by its name is to make a contract between the summoner and the spirit. If they are signing a contract for the first time, then it is necessary to perform a summoning ceremony, call upon nature and draw a summoning circle. The valet must be in the water to summon the spirit of water, and to summon such a powerful spirit of wind as Jin, people climb to the top of a mountain or go to a place where a typhoon is raging, and then draw a summoning circle. Vallette will only be able to summon him inside if they make a contract, but if she doesn't want to do that, then maybe she can summon him if she draws a circle inside the room because she has a lot of power. Although the spirit doubted this very much after all, spirits had never been summoned to a magic tower before. But Vallette decided to try. She didn't know what to draw with. There was nothing on the table that could help. And then she had an idea. She took a table knife and cut her dress because if it can get out of here, then there is nothing special about this dress. Now she had a piece of cloth, and then she cut the skin and decided to draw a summoning circle with blood. The spirit was not pleased to see that he was going to be summoned in such a barbaric way, But he helped her draw the circle and told her that she needed to use a summoning spell that summons the spirit of the wind. Vallette has never heard of this and naturally doesn't know. The funny thing is that the medium asks the spirit for the spell to summon him, but he tells her the more she cast the spell, the more powerful the force she felt. And so she summoned the great spirit of the wind. Jean is shocked that it actually worked. Vallette decided that she would draw a circle on a piece of paper and carry it with her in case she got stuck somewhere where it was impossible to summon spirits. And now she was about to get out of here with the help of Jin, but they were very unlucky. Jin immediately flew away and crashed into the walls of this room, and naturally it was Reinhardt who did it. He came up to his mistress, and he was very worried because he saw a cut on her hand she cut herself. And then he saw the summoning circle written in her blood. He said that if she needed a pen and paper, he would provide her with whatever she wanted. But the fact that she hurt herself upset him a lot. Licked the cut, and the finger immediately healed. He sat Vallette down on the bed and sat on his knees in front of her. He said that she could just call him if she needed anything, and he would do whatever she wanted. Now he was on his knees. It reminded her of their first meeting. She said it was just a test and he shouldn't exaggerate, but in any case it was very offensive to him. He could go crazy and kill all the knife makers. Vallette laughed and told him to release the genie wind spirit, whom he had nailed to the wall. Once free, the spirit immediately began to scream and swear at this insignificant magician. And the saddest thing is that I am a spirit. It cannot defend itself or attack. And other people cannot hear what the spirit says, and that is for the best. Reinhardt probably realized that Jean could help Vallette, but as if he didn't care about it, he asked the lady to stroke him. Vallette did this to calm Reinhardt down. She can't escape right now anyway, and it's better to do what he wants. It really helped him calm down. Reinhardt said that sometimes it seems to him that the lady is a creature that watches history when she sees death or abuse. She has such a helpless look, as if she decided for everyone that she can't change anything. Vallette was amazed by his insight. He said everything as it is and apparently had been thinking about it for a long time. Reinhardt actually also knows that everything is predetermined and nothing is, but he is angry. However, his mistress is patient and does not behave so emotionally. The lady is not aware that he wants to take possession of her. When she asked what he could do, she meant he didn't explain anything. He decided that it was time for her to sleep and she must be tired. So Vallette fell asleep up to the cheek of his finger. The last thing she saw was the smile of this crazy bastard. Reinhardt wanted Vallette to be unable to do anything. It would be better if she relied only on him in everything. He wouldn't be able to be with her if he hadn't become the Lord of the Tower, and that made him feel sad somehow. With the help of magic, he changed her clothes and hugged her for the night. In the morning, Vallette woke up and had a disgusting feeling that her hand was wet. When she turned around, she saw Reinhardt sleeping next to her, who for some reason was holding her hand. He used magic again to fall asleep. Vallette hoped that now he was fast asleep and did not hear anything. It's been a few days since she's been here, so she has to free the slaves in the house, but she's afraid she won't have time. She had very little time now. The educational institution where Count Delight kept his slaves and will keep them for another week under contract, all the slaves will die if the mercenaries looking after the slaves leave. In addition, the main character is now there. He was supposed to be freed after Reinhardt destroyed the estate and killed the Count. But Vallette is the reason why everything is not going according to plan. You need to try to force Reinhardt to free the slaves. When he woke up, she said she wanted to go to the correctional institutions to free the slaves, so they wouldn't die. Yet they were still in her possession, and so she could free them. Reinhardt asked if she even knew what this place was. How could she go there without even thinking? But Vallette wanted to sort out her father's unfinished business and not let so many people die. Reinhardt was upset the lady was kind to everyone except him. He felt compassion he had never had before. Vallette couldn't explain and didn't know how to persuade him. But apparently it wasn't even worth trying. Reinhardt realized what she wanted and decided to do it. When she got to this educational institution, it was her first time here. The atmosphere was understandable, but there was a terrible smell. Slaves sitting in cages begged their master to buy them and fought among themselves. Vallette didn't think that everything was in such a terrible state. Reinhardt told her to open her eyes wider because that's what she wanted to see. But she stopped getting worse and worse, and all because of the fact that here is widespread is suitable for agent of poor quality. Reinhardt wanted her to be weak, only she can use him. I wanted she didn't ask for help. After a kiss on the forehead, Vallette finally came to her senses. He turned off the sensitivity to this drug so that she would no longer feel dizzy. Oh, and then she asked, "Is he himself okay?" She shouldn't have asked that question. Reinhardt was only glad that the lady was worried about him. Now she needed to do something with this day air. She could have just given the order to Reinhardt, but she didn't do it. He became disappointed and said that he couldn't help her in any way then. And Vallette did not expect help from him. She tried to call upon the spirit of the sylph, but for some reason she did not succeed. Then she looked at Reinhardt and thought that it was his doing. But it turned out that it was not so, and in fact the connection was broken from the other side. For some reason the spirit didn't want to respond, so Vallette believed and called on the genie. He was annoyed again because she kept calling him without a contract. It was very disrespectful. He hoped that this time she called him to make a contract. But no, she asked him to clear the air here so that there would be no more drug intoxication. He agreed with me to increase when she will pay for it. A strong wind arose, and then, when it began to die down, Vallette heard familiar voices. It was the voice of the Crown Prince. As it turned out, he was the chief of the case of the murder of Count Delight, and he ordered to seize those who were inside. Now you can go to Lika to find Lady Vallette. She was surprised to see Milrod. How did he know about this place, and did I keep the documents? Now it was very disadvantageous that he came here, and all this irritated her so much. And Reinhardt was also irritated by this. He asked the lady to just kill them, but she did not allow him to complicate the situation. He said he could buy them without complicating the situation only if she gave him the order. Besides, you need to select calls to release the slaves. It is unlikely that this stupid bird is capable of such a thing. It will only be able to destroy the entire building. Vallette really didn't want to ask him for help, but there was no other way out. She asked him to open the doors of the cell, but that wasn't enough. He wanted her to say his name when asked because he doesn't know for sure whether she's ordering him or that bird. Reinhardt. As soon as this name was pronounced, all the locks immediately shone from the cages. The slaves came out surprised. They didn't understand what had happened. Vallette announced that the man who caught them and imprisoned them here died. So now they are free. They must escape from here through the back exit and live as he wants. They rejoiced and ran away with gratitude. That's how the recently locked-in set out on the path to freedom. Not everyone was able to leave because there were children left behind, as well as drugged adults who could not leave. Vallette did everything she could. She wasn't going to take responsibility for the rest. Reinhardt found this irritating and walked up to one of the cages where the child was sitting. This boy didn't even think about leaving, he just sat and cried. Vallette asked what he was going to do with this child. Reinhardt felt a magical power in him, and as the ruler of the magic tower, he could not abandon the future mage. But the will of fate if he found him is an unbreakable rule. Owan but the boy, when he looked at Reinhardt, so he immediately rushed to the valet, which I did more safely. She couldn't let Reinhardt kidnap this boy, even if he was a mage. However, he was once again upset that the lady's kindness did not extend to him. Suddenly, it was possible to open the doors to this room, and a crowd of people immediately began to descend. Reinhardt was surprised that they dared to break his shield. Apparently a new priest appeared, but that's not so important. And then the moment came when Vallette and the prince met. Milrod was so happy when he saw her win. You know that dreams are okay, she lived. He was so worried, and now she felt relief. Of course, it was a pity that she hadn't contacted them all this time, but he understood that she probably had her reasons. And then he saw next to her that servant of Count Delight. There are rumors that it was he who killed the Count, so Premise, as the one responsible for the investigation, asked about it. Reinhardt tactfully left this question. Also, Mental Prince knew that this guy became the master of the magic tower, should it be true. Reinhardt, as usual, dodged questions that were already obvious truths. I didn't like the fact that someone was talking to him in that tone, especially if it was a shameless Arab who had committed a terrible act. Reinhardt hated the noise he was going to get rid of them. It was just… But he didn't want the lady to see, so he decided to return her to the tower along with this child. It immediately became clear that he was up to something, but Vallette couldn't do anything about it. The prince came to her to somehow stop the process of movement, but she disappeared too quickly. Milrod lost control. He was angry and immediately pointed his sword at Reinhardt. Well, naturally nothing came of it, because the magician was much stronger. It's a pity that he wasn't allowed to kill the prince, so he simply threw him away with magic. Reinhardt said that if the prince continued to wag his tail in front of the lady, he would definitely die. And now he didn't know what to do, kill or not. The knight said that even if I am the lord of the tower, I must follow the laws. Reinhardt didn't care. It was just the crown prince and he tortured him a little more. It really was a pleasure. But then he let go anyway because Vallette asked not to kill. There were several of his men here now. Reinhardt was wondering which of them dared to break his shield. Everyone was a little confused. No one could answer. But Reinhardt asked twice who dared to touch his account. They were afraid to answer because they didn't want the culprit to be punished in any way. Reinhardt was just irritated by the fact that there were several people here earlier, but these rude people burst in and interfered with the lady. He would not have used force against them if they had not interfered. The prince is in charge of the count's murder case and couldn't help but use the clue to the solution, and Reinhardt simply called him stupid and boring. Since no one answered his question, Reinhardt, you yourself found the culprit and pinned him to the wall. This mage is wearing the crown prince's armor. Not everyone has such strong armor, and this guy was hidden in the crowd. Reinhardt did not kill, but said that if he touched Vladekabashny's magic again, something very bad would happen. He pressed hard on this man's neck and really wanted to kill him, but the lady told him not to do it. Reinhardt still wanted to have fun, even if not kill anyone, so he did something else. All the prince's men suffered greatly from this magic and could only ovulate on the floor. Reinhardt is the first warning and offered to end everything as god and guardian of the temple. He knew perfectly well what these people were going to do with Vallette, and for her abilities, it hurt him to realize that the analog piece for the prince, especially now that she has no patron. The prince angered himself, said that he didn't even think about it because she doesn't eat him. He was worried about her disappearance and he came to save her. But Reinhardt forgot that this prince was so stupid. Even if he really didn't intend to do anything with her and took it all as a joke. This is already quite boring. Brought you told the Lord of the Magic Towers to watch your words. Otherwise he will not restrain himself. Or Reinhardt didn't care about these threats, he just laughed. The prince was so stupid that the lady didn't even look at him, although he had many chances to achieve her. But now he can no longer get her. Now the lady belongs to Reinhardt. Besides, he was the first to know about her and the first to see her. He was the first in everything. The prince needs to take off his rose-colored glasses because he is minutes away from even Reinhardt's little finger, so he will not be able to protect the knave. Therefore, I will do once again dare to look at her in this reason some harm to her. Then Reinhardt swore by his name that life will be worse than death. He will cut off all his limbs, but they don't think that he will learn until the last second. So he should think carefully about how he is going to naturally move on. Reinhardt teleported to the heavenly room to his beloved mistress. Only then he saw a huge crack in the wall and a guard dog nearby. Then everything became clear. The Jack had escaped. But Reinhardt didn't get angry. It was funny that she liked to play hide-and-seek. She took off the bracelet she was wearing. The watchdog asked if it was necessary to look for the lady. But Reinhardt said that there was no need for this. She would rest in a safe place and return, because she was very smart. Reinhardt decided to ask the dog if he would be angry if his legs were chained. Capellia said, "Honestly, yes, it definitely makes me angry." Reinhardt had to discard this idea. After all, the lady is also a person. In the Empire, there is no official union of alchemists, but there is an underground one and they are being hunted. Many had died to protect themselves. She probably went there. It's funny that she will have to fight for her life. Reinhardt asked the dog if he had ever eaten candy. The answer was yes, and Reinhardt had also tried candy once, but they were too sweet, and he felt very dirty because they got stuck in his teeth. But the lady was special. Reinhardt waited a long time to see if he could feel that pleasant sweetness again. He thought that the lady would give him candy again if he obeyed, but in all the years she never gave it. She gave him one candy once because she didn't like them very much. Reinhardt will always remember this, even if it was pity, or the candies just weren't to the lady's liking. In any case, she is beautiful. Vallette ran away even though she knew that nothing would come of it. By the way, that child was with her. He was very worried about her wrist mistress. She got hurt. Vallette said that she was not his mistress and it was better to call him by his name. Earlier in the magic tower, Vallette decided to summon two spirits at once. Two winds and the spirit of water. Nereid was delighted with the Jack who was able to summon her without a contract. And Jin has already gotten used to the fact that he can be cut out at any time. In general, the spirit of water was surprised that she and Jin could be summoned at the same time, because they are higher spirits. It was very unusual, and of course they were interested in what he wanted to call for. Vallette asked to cut this bracelet and help get out of this room. There was quite strong magic in this bracelet, so two spirits would have to destroy it at once, but they still helped. Vallette. Where will she go now? While there is a person who knows about her ability of heavy alchemy, she will be constantly pursued, so she will have to hide. She found herself in some alley where there was no one. Now she needed to think about money and safety and also about this child. The Jack had some precious magical stones. She was going to go to the jeweler first, and then find the Union of Alchemists. She doesn't know much about this place, but there are more alchemists than she thought. This is because there are so many alchemists who are in hiding. The genie disappeared and now Vallette had to find a way. They just walked around the city. The boy asked her if they were safe, but the answer was no. Vallette knew that it was impossible for Reinhardt to escape. He would find them anyway. The boy did not understand why she was running away then. Vallette felt like she was going crazy too when she was with him, but she wasn't afraid to run away because he wouldn't kill her anyway. Because she will start to despise him for real if he does that. Vallette began to see people. Coming out onto the main street, she realized that she was in the capital, so she pulled up her hood. Now she had to be careful, and so she went into some kind of jewelry store and said that she wanted to sell jewelry. She put a gold ring with stones, but she was immediately told that there was no money to pay for such a precious stone, so it would be better for her to go somewhere else. Vallette did not expect that her ideal shop's the door to them such an expensive expression. The woman would have found a way to buy a ring if she were normal. Then something is wrong here. For sure she knows something. Vallette asked if there is any place here where you sell advanced level 1s. The face immediately showed disgust. The woman told the young ladies that if she didn't want to disappear, they should watch their language. This look was full of exercise. Judging by her reaction, she once had ties to the Union of Alchemists. Vallette was glad that she had found what she was looking for now. She needed to leave, but she asked the woman to buy this ring for any amount, and then do with it whatever she wants because now there is absolutely no money anyway. The woman gave all the money she had to buy this ring, but she said honestly that if the lady goes to the right place, he can sell this gem for 4 times the price. Vallette wasn't in it, but she together with such a sum of money is enough for her plan. Monopoly and the Emperor brought in a huge price because of these citizens did not hang themselves, but the Jack's plan will be in demand. She wants to open a store with this money and sell potions there, at a low price. Then it will have many customers, popularity will increase if there are stable supplies. And because of this, she will earn a reputation. The Imperial family won't be able to arrest if everyone trusts Vallette. Although she is scared, this is the only way to survive. Reinhardt will probably be comfortable with this. He already has a lot of his own bodies. Vallette took the money and was about to go, but this woman said at the end that she needed to go to the second largest, that's true, and show the bartender the potion she made. Vallette thanked for the kindness. After all, she was not mistaken, and this woman is somehow connected with the Union of Alchemists. There were a lot of people on the streets, but Vallette still couldn't find a second meal. There's no question. Probably in the capital even when it was evening, but she still couldn't find one. The boy who always walked with her said that she asked passers-by where the second largest one is. That's right, so he knows the way. Vallette thanked him. He was very glad that he could be useful and seemed to want her to praise him. It was a little awkward, but she decided to lose weight and got hit on the head. It seems that this is what he really wanted, so the boy was happy. And so they reached the tavern. It was not at all different from the others. Vallette was sure that Reinhardt was not yet balanced, so he had not fully gained his strength and would not be able to quickly determine her location. So now she could take advantage of this chance. Alrighties. And if he even touched the shitty prince with a finger, then the Imperial family will rise up against the Magic Tower and Reinhardt. Then we will have to deal with this for some time. Whoever he is, he will not be able to simply destroy the Imperial family. Vallette entered the tavern here. It was just smarter, calmer than she expected. She said she wanted to rent a room for her and the baby for one night. She was warmly welcomed and sold the key to the room, and she also wanted to know about the bar, which is located across the stairs at the other entrance. To begin with, she of course went to the living room. Calling 2 higher spirits at the same time is still very exhausting. She was very tired and wanted to rest, so she ended up falling asleep right away. When she woke up in the morning, she decided to go and have a look. It was probably strange that there were so many people in the morning. Then she saw a crowd near the board. There were wanted posters and missing people. Posters, there were Reinhardt and Vallette. She immediately began to panic. She didn't understand when they managed to print out these pictures of the wanted posters for the Imperial family, and also the wanted posters for the Magic Tower. Vallette went to a bar that was located separately. There were no people there at all because usually no one drinks in the morning. Vallette didn't come here for this. She got it, showed it to him normally. He immediately understood everything. Then he or she began to evaluate as a real professional. He quickly determined that this series eye went out. Then he had not seen such good animals for a long time. Then he said that his shift would be at midnight. He has good drinks, so he offered the girl to enjoy them. And Vallette, of course, agreed. Sometime later woke up in that boy, so she ordered food to have breakfast. She didn't know how to address him. She had never called people by their names for years, but now she asked. The boy said his name was Theorion. It seemed very familiar to her. She couldn't tell if this name was real or fictional. Then she started trying to remember the events from the novel. When Reinhardt, after killing everyone in the Count's estate, came to this unit for slaves, he killed everyone there. But there was someone in the correctional room who was able to resist him, Vallette. I don't remember very well, but it seems that it was there that she heard this name, but she doesn't know whether the main character of the novel escaped. While she was thinking about this, the boy was eating calmly. When he noticed her gaze on him, he became very scared and began to change. He saw that she was in a bad mood. The children in the building said that they were disgusted to see Therion's eyes, so he always tried to avoid eye contact. A child with the makings of a magician. And still, even in such a deserted place, it was really a pity. It reminded me of the past judgment because of the abilities of the Jacks. She told the boy not to worry after all. He ran away and shouldn't worry about it. The main character of the novel was a strong enough personality to attack Reinhardt, but it was unlikely that this child was capable of such a thing. Vallette doubted that this was the main character. She hoped that the main character would soon meet Reinhardt and that he was even alive. When evening came, she came to the park where many men had gone. Then she saw this very bartender, and he took her somewhere. They walked down the street for a very long time. And finally, they came to some secret place. Vallette already had some suspicions that they were trying to deceive her. The bartender never introduced himself, what was called, and he gave his name Roman. Vallette should therefore not name the time, and decided to be more careful. She went inside. It turned out to be some other bar. It is unclear about ordinary people, but it is obvious that now there are only alchemists here. Roman asked her to show her skills right there and make some kind of tree. Vallette is used to having her self-esteem hurt. Being a monkey at the zoo has become a habit for everyone, but she decided to make a regular potion. Yes, she will live easily and quickly from this. She drew a magic circle, and then she created a potion, and it would seem she did something very simple and easy. But everyone was surprised by her abilities. This was far from an ordinary potion. This was enough for her to prove her strength. Then the man introduced himself to her again. He is an alchemist's bully. He is a member of an unofficial union of alchemists, and his name is Roisman. Since she had proven her skills and he had revealed his identity, she decided that she could do the same and gave her real name. All the alchemists were in shock. They immediately started discussing her and what had recently happened in the Delight Mansion. The head of the Union of Alchemists heard this story and decided that he would come here perfectly to meet with Vallette Vittino, known as a very strong alchemist. Then they went to some warehouse because I was being treated. They looked normal, but Roseman used her hands and set a certain time, and then a secret passage opened behind the clock. Vallette had never seen anything like this. This mechanism must be the work of qualified technicians. They were about to go there, but the boy stopped the jack. He was crying and it seemed that something was wrong. He couldn't go. She thought that he was afraid of something because she didn't understand children's feelings very well. But Roisman somehow very quickly realized that the baby's legs hurt and suggested that she simply carry him in her arms. Vallette said that he should have immediately said that his legs hurt, and Therion even felt. He carried the baby in his arms through a long, dark corridor. They came to some doors. Opening these doors, they found themselves inside some very sophisticated place. It turned out that this was an alchemist's refuge, similar to a mansion. Apparently, the alchemists had many rich supporters. And finally, someone came out to greet her. Vallette immediately recognized the man. Seeing him only once, she knew that it was Duke Carlon Delphin. He was pleased that she knew him as well as he listened to her. Vallette recognized him for a reason, because he is one of the two great dukes of the Empire. He is generally praised by souls, but she never even thought that she would be able to meet him in such a place. She heard that he was years old, but he doesn't look his age at all. He seems very young. He himself did not expect to see such a treasure of Count Delight here. He offered her a cup of tea and a conversation without hidden meanings. Then she went with him, but completely forgot about Therion, who followed her. He was afraid to be left without her. Of course, the Duke had questions. Who is this child? Vallette said that it is a little magician. She decided to reveal his identity because ordinary people cannot get inside, but he has superiority. She doesn't know anything else about this child, but their paths coincided, so now they are together. The Duke led them into the dining rooms where they all sat together at a large table. This Duke is actually a complex person. He owns a lot but remains humble. This person's strength reaches its limit. There is no need to hide the trump cards from him on the other side. The Jack should take advantage of this opportunity. She said that the Duke need not worry about the new Lord of the Magic Tower. The children will definitely not touch it. Vallette finished this topic and decided to move on to where she wanted to make an offer to the Union of Alchemists. However, the Duke could not get to this point so quickly until he knew what he needed to know. So he asked the question he was curious how Count Delight was killed. Vallette had nothing to say. She only confirmed that the rumors were true. The Lord of the Tower killed the Count, and she had nothing to do with it. But then why was she the only survivor? The Duke had prepared well for these questions. He knew where to press. Vallette didn't even know how long she could hold out in a conversation with this man. The novel didn't say that he was bad. In any case, it's better here than it was in the Magic Tower or the Imperial set. Vallette said that the Lord of the Tower knows that she came here, and it is only a matter of time before he appears here. She is sure that this man will take her with him, or she will return to him for some reason. He is her last defense and hope, and he knows it. The Duke asked from whom they protect her. Vallette said, from the Emperor's creator or from some trap. The Duke realized that this girl was just as abnormal as the Lord of the Magic Tower. Count Delight pretended to be a good father, but no one knew what was hidden under it. The Duke heard that he, the Count, treated his child like a goose that laid golden eggs. Then she needed the Duke's help, but he did not help. He saw her skill because she participated in the clowning of the Imperial Palace. Vallette wanted to stop this conversation. She did not want to discuss it. She said that she needed her alchemist to provide her with two things. Firstly, a safe place that the Imperial family could not reach, and secondly, she wanted to open a pharmacy where she could sell her own trees. She knows almost nothing about the outside world because she was locked up for a long time. It would be nice if she was given to someone who could help. Of course, this is not all for free. She will prepare a potion for the person who will help her. But now she can only provide a little bit of jewelry. Of course, for the Duke, the jewelry had no value, but she still gave it to him. She doesn't know the value of high-end potions, but she knows they are worth a lot. She can make potions weekly or monthly. The value of a high-quality potion is certainly high. It is always a creation even if it is prepared by an unknown alchemist. But what if the Duke simply forbids the knave here and constantly forces him to make the potion? She couldn't even believe that he was capable of this. She didn't expect it. And then the Duke laughed that she believed it. After all, they were having a serious conversation. She speaks so boldly and trusts people so easily. It's a pity she doesn't know anything yet. What kind of alchemist would make such an unwise offer? And her abilities far exceeded Herpes's expectations, wanted to show this talent to the world before making a serious mistake. He agreed to this proposal and agreed to help her sell their bet would be potions. Even Vallette understood that it was a lot, but she was only doing it. But she still decided to agree on a smaller amount. The Duke was already glad that she was not so stupid. Her maximum is 2 potions a day, so in a month it will come out to about. So she suggested this amount should be enough as compensation for the Duke's kindness. He was shocked she talked about everything as if it was a child's play, too unsure of herself. Someone hid the gift from her so that she would not realize her uniqueness and value. At their first meeting, the Duke thought she was about 18 years old. She listened only to her father and showed off her abilities like a circus monkey. This child's gaze was so cold, but there was still warmth in his soul. Now that she has grown up, all that is gone. All she needs is illegal trade, the Duke agreed. But her conditions and even prepared housing worked a lot. So he offered her to rest here in the spare room, but she refused, setting boundaries. When she left, the Duke was really very upset and in his condition and behavior apparently, all because Count Delight had greatly intimidated her. Vallette and Therion were returning to the tavern. The boy followed her everywhere, and she said that he didn't need to run if he was tired. But he said with a smile on his face that everything was fine. If you don't pay attention to the details, it seems that everything is really fine, but in reality it is not. Vallette thinks a lot when he looks at Therion. The little kitten that clung to her young bird, soft and warm feathers, innocent puppy that ran after her father killed every animal to which Vallette was attached. And perhaps this is already a pattern, and she feels that Therion can also be killed because of her. Because of this, she was worried. The boy saw her emotions and thought that he was to blame for them, so he was depressed. But Vallette proved to him that this was not so and even offered to hold hands, because all this time, he was holding on to her cloak. He was so happy, and of course agreed, and so they came to the village. Vallette was not at all surprised when she saw a guest in her room. Reinhardt sat by the window and waited all this time for the lady to return. He was wondering if everything was okay with her. He started telling how she hurt his heart when she ran away. Saw when she asked if his patience was so fast and everything was obvious to find her. It was easy, but why did we do it so immediately? He wanted to give her more time. The longer he waits, the more everything collapses. He hugged her, and he immediately felt better. Asked her to take pity on her slave. Vallette said many times that she had a slave. Then he wanted to be hers later, but she hates such big and creepy pets. Reinhardt told about the announcement about the missing Jack. She saw it too. But she didn't see that the prince offered a reward for her head, and at first she didn't even believe Reinhardt. She immediately asked what he had done to become the crown prince, since he could hardly have done it just like that. Reinhardt was guilty only of keeping alive. He did not kill anyone, did not hurt all living. As the lady ordered, he expected praise for this. But she couldn't praise him if there was still a reward on her head. She told him to go away. He was surprised, and she didn't even ask him how he found her because she had run away. But Vallette wasn't interested, because she knew that no matter where she was, he would still find her. This made Reinhardt so happy that he even laughed. At first, Vallette thought that not everything was in his hands, and that she could get rid of him. But he thought too much of himself. How he wished that the lady was a doll or a precious stone, then she would be entirely his. Tell her it was disgusting, so she rested Reinhardt. She immediately said that if he really wanted to kill her, then let him do it quickly so that it wouldn't hurt her. It would be good if he showed at least a little mercy. And if he is not going to kill his own, then let her go because she has a headache and lack of sleep. With the help of magic, he took her in his arms. It is unknown what she had in mind. She began to resist, but it was useless. He simply took her to the bed. She seemed to have forgotten the spell that he often cast on her. As soon as he put her on the bed, Vallette felt weak and immediately fell asleep. Only she didn't even notice that this time he didn't use any spell. When she was sleeping, I covered her with a blanket and we lightly stroked her face. He liked to just admire her, but suddenly he heard a scream. It was the same boy screaming for Vallette not to touch him. Reinhardt was irritated. He said to be quiet while the lady was sleeping. He squeezed the boy's throat on purpose, but he didn't intend to kill him. It was just a threat. Then he let go of the boy, and then he somehow quickly came to himself, obviously because he was a magician. But he did not yet know that he was already capable of using magic. Reinhardt said that it would be better if he learned to wield a sword, not magic. Although the boy thought that he was a magician, but it was up to him to decide. He will remain a doll or spread his wings and become a beautiful butterfly. After these words, Reinhardt disappeared from this room, leaving the boy alone in thought. Therion thought for the first time that everything was really in his hands. He could choose any path. The next morning when she woke up, Therion was no longer asleep. He was wandering around the room. She said that the man had already left. Vallette is actually the best fellow. She was exhausted by the 100th. But when he came, it was very strange. But she was able to fall asleep, and it was always like that. She was sure that he was using magic, but it was good that she didn't notice it. If she had noticed, she wouldn't have allowed him to be a part of her life. Therion. She said that the man said it would be better to learn to wield a sword. Vallette was surprised because Therion is young Mac. He definitely has strength. But why does Reinhardt want to teach him how to handle the ball instead of magic? Reinhardt has become unpredictable since she changed the course of the original story. Is this just a different kind of coming? Vallette said that today she will go to the address that the Duke gave us and stay there, and they will help her. Then she and the boy came to the gates of a huge mansion. This place initially did not look like an ordinary mansion. Vallette regretted that she believed the Duke. She didn't even know if there would be any help for the alchemist here. The Imperial family might be watching the Duke. It's unlikely that he would support her. But now she was going to leave the boy here anyway. She said that from now on he walked alone. Therion understood why she didn't want to be with Vallet's sister and promised to complain about something. She looked at him pitifully, but this look really scared the already traumatized boy. Vallette said that a just man. He will not do anything bad. Vallette with a sword and will be able to defend himself. And at that moment the Duke appeared. He said that he would protect not only the boy, but also the young lady. Vallette didn't need help. She asked the Duke to just take care of this child. But he was talking about how he needed to take both of them. Vallette was outraged why he was talking there as if she was some kind of toy. Obviously, she is worried about the search, so he offered to become her guardian. Then the Emperor will not touch her if she is under the protection of the Duke. Of course, if the Duke becomes her guardian, then she will avoid unpleasant situations with the Imperial family. Then she will make him the promised potions, and he will ensure her safety. The pharmacy that she wanted to open and sell her. The Duke promised that he keeps his promise. The Imperial family will not call damaged his hands to her. Will be able to do whatever she wants. Vallette didn't understand why the Duke didn't say a word to me about the money she would receive. Was she just greedy and wanted to monopolize the production of potions? She didn't really believe my word and decided to draw up a contract. The Duke tried to help, but he gave the impression that he was some kind of villain. But he promised that they would make a treaty, so Vallette and the boy finally went inside. The Duke doesn't know at all what Vallette wants, and the contract is just a minimum guarantee. She can only rely on herself, trusting others she will become weak. That's life. So she didn't relax for a second. And so the Duke read the agreement that she offered him and immediately agreed to it. She wrote down the best conditions for herself, that's all. He agreed to it. Although there should be more points in the contract, he decided not to add anything and has already signed it. According to the contract, if Vallette makes potions per month, then food and clothing will be provided. There is also a clause about her protection and their mutual respect for their personal life. The Duke only demanded a potion from her. She was sure that this was an unfair deal and was already nervous. But in the end, weeks passed. She realized that she was just nervous in vain. The Duke had a positive attitude towards her all this time. When he could start preparing the potion, but said that for now she should rest and get used to this place. No one wanted the children to be of poor quality because of her fatigue. Vallette didn't want to rest for long because she knew she could become completely lazy. But there was something else that really bothered her. Everyone in this estate treated her like a child. It was suspicious, and she couldn't get used to it. Because even as a child, she hadn't been treated like that. Vallette decided to come to the Duke today. It was the first time she came first, and he was very happy, so he even put off all his work. I have no problems with the magic tower. Even other art hasn't come to her again during all this time. He probably has a lot of things to do. It was very unusual without his surveillance, but normal. Vallette suggested that my Duke addressed her informally because the Delight family is no longer there and can be called by just her first name. So she came to him to thank him for his attentiveness and precision, as well as his kindness and care. But she was uncomfortable sitting idly by. She was ready to begin fulfilling the terms of the contract. He felt sorry to look at her. She was like a rabbit that was running away from the chase. Only the evil dog had already stopped chasing him, but he continued to run because he didn't know what would happen to him. In a week, there will be a banquet at the Imperial Palace. Invited Vallette to attend this event. She didn't understand the meaning of the proposal. Apparently, she wanted to hide from the Imperial family. The Duke said that sometimes it's better to show off to all of Russia than to hide. He felt so sad when he saw this distrust. But her face. Eek, but the Duke was not going to hurt this little girl after all, he promised. He accidentally called her a baby. It upset her, so he apologized. And yet again, he offered her to go to this banquet so that she could show all the shriveled bastards who was behind her. Vallette was worried that the gel would lose something of her in the Imperial Palace and she would be left completely alone in front of them. But he said that this would definitely not happen. She couldn't believe him. But the Duke says for the first time that he is 100% sure of something, and one of his principles keeps his word. Anyway, she had no choice, so she agreed. Then he returned to the topic of the contract. He asked how much Vallette knew about alchemy. She said she remembers buying chemistry books and reading them all day long, but has been doing less of that lately. The Duke asked her many questions. How much does she know about reactions and failures? What is her maximum? How many formulas does she know? Can she change the formula, and are there any taboos? Vallette simply did not know what it was to answer. She never had a teacher. Friends sometimes helped the alchemist, and from the Imperial Palace, first of all, he taught her the correct use of formulas. The Duke was shocked. He certainly doesn't know this man, but that alchemist doesn't understand his business at all. He taught Vallette to use formulas and run faster than a locomotive. He didn't even tell him about the basics of alchemy. The knave had no problem with this, but the Duke knew it because her capabilities were limited, and it couldn't go on like this. Teaching formulas without knowing the child's abilities is the highest degree of not only danger, but also failure. People who understand this perfectly are blinded by greed. The Duke is of course glad that he didn't have any problems making the greenery. The contract didn't say that the potion was urgently needed, so he wanted her to learn how to base it first. It was somehow insulting to the knave. Besides, she had prepared this potion dozens of times already. She didn't understand why she needed to know the basics, but she apparently didn't understand what she was talking about and was trying to avoid this problem. In any case, training was not written into the contract, so she was not going to do it, she thought. Is it really greed that speaks for the Duke? This man can hardly be called greedy, but now he decided to admit that this is so. However, in this situation, it would be better for Vallette to take advantage of his greed. When signing contracts, she assumed only business relations. It never occurred to her that the heart would think about such insignificant things. She is his dear business partner, and a partner must evaluate the capabilities of another. He needs time to get this money to open a store. So he suggested getting back to business and asked Vallette to give him at least one chance to teach her. It was a strong blow to her self-esteem, but she understood that it would only bring benefits, so she agreed. But if she understands that the activity is useless, then of course she will give it up. Now she will be busy preparing for the banquet, and therefore they will begin training after it. And they also need to buy a dress for the banquet, and then alchemical tools. Vallette didn't want to spend money. All this is expensive, but it's a debt for which she communicates in turn. She decided that she would return all the money to him in a year, when I open, and you your store, and earn money. Yeah, but first she needed to know how the series was valued and the cost. She was already planning to calculate how much money she would need to return to the Duke. She was still thinking about telling her not to think about it or just buying half. The number of alchemists decreased, so the Imperial Palace monopolized them. Usually people found it difficult to get the series aristocrats can buy. For a certain amount, it is the Imperial family that restores prices for the series. Low-grade potion costs. Million bell. What is gold coins? Average level costs. Gold coins twice as much. Low Sotnikova. Vallette was shocked when she learned these huge prices. She did not understand what he was talking about. That she doesn't even know all her values. She doesn't understand economics, so she had to take everything off. Million. Bell is the amount that would be enough for a month of life for an ordinary family of 4 people. The cost of a low level can be compared to 5 months of life for such a family. Of an average level would cost months of life. The Emperor's wealthy family doesn't offer much for advanced potions. They put them up for sale a couple of times a year, as well as high-quality products. But to treat a serious injury, a potion of an average level will suffice, often put up for auction and sold for millions, but also at these auctions trade for people's lives. Vallette realized that she had to compete by selling limited products at a high price, which is why she held on and tried to sell it to the Imperial family. It was very offensive to hear such words because he had no intention of doing this. But now there is no point in explaining anything. Based on interests, she also wants to sell her work at auctions. But she doesn't know one thing at all. Vallette decided to end the conversation, but before leaving she remembered the boy. She hoped that the Duke could help him master the sword. Of course, this child could become a magician, but he must learn to wield a sword. The Duke said that he would make a good teacher, and Vallette really hoped for it. She had one request to keep her safe, but now she also asked to help this child. The Crown Prince learned that his father, the Emperor, had made a search for the Jacks, and the Prince himself would of course be against it. The lady is not guilty of anything. Emperor Canis Schellens said that the high-level priest and medium decided that the abilities and stored magic tower and the life of the Crown Prince of the country was in danger. The Emperor cannot turn a blind eye to this. But he insisted to his son that Vallette had nothing to do with it. She was only influenced by this. He offended the tyrant again. The temperature was disgusting. His son was too narrow-minded. One of his steps depends on hundreds of thousands of lives, but he is too frivolous about it. Abilities on the external owner of the tower is too dangerous. You need to be grateful that at least they found out how to hold him. Of course, the Emperor knows that his son sincerely likes his bride, and the Emperor himself too. If there is that he is holding the future Empress, some owner of the magic tower, you need to return her to the courtyard as soon as possible. But it was not at all because of this reason to worry about Vallette, that he only thinks that it is too cruel towards her. But the Emperor was not tied to this matter because he knew Count Delight personally tamed this child from an early age using special methods. So no matter how much Milrod tried with all his heart and all his might to get closer to her, she would never appreciate it. In general, the prince's sincerity and protection will not touch her for a moment, because he was right in raising her that way. Since ancient times, the tower's owners were born with atrophied feelings instead of emotions. They chose reason in order to make balanced decisions in any situation. And if the tower's owner was born with this, so they did the same to Vallette so that she would not experience a feeling of guilt, which could become an obstacle in her affairs. The Emperor also found out about this after he read the report. He did not expect the Count to be such a cruel person, but to some extent he could understand him because Vallette had too much power, even better than the palace alchemist. And in a year, She can only make 3 elixirs of the highest level. And Vallette can make 2 whole ones in a day. Who can ignore such a gold mine? The Emperor was sure that the owner of the magic tower was also aiming for this. It's good that few know her true value, but soon many may encroach on her if they only see her power. In such chaos, only the Imperial family is capable of protecting the Vallette. If left unattended, it will fall into unknown hands and will be used for the rest of its life. In that case, it is better for the people that she becomes the Empress in the palace. Now the son finally understands his father, and he should forget that. First of all, he must protect the Imperial family. When he left, the Emperor said that this is my ideal. He will always lack the hereditary principle, percent. And then he called Killian. This is the same Imperial alchemist who was in the office all this time. The Emperor ordered Killian to find Jack because she would be his future successor to fill the empty space before he resigned. One way or another, information was received that she had support from other alchemists behind her. She chose the perfect moment to hide among them. But her head works perfectly, so perhaps the information is a trap anyway. The Emperor ordered the knave to be brought here. In the original novel, if years had passed since then, such an interesting meeting would have taken place. Therion survived. He learned to handle the ball, and he found the Lord of the Tower. Years ago, he was determined to kill him. And all because Reinhardt was born the master of the tower, not power. And for him, who has never bowed his head in his life, this feeling is unfamiliar. But Therion survived only thanks to this one feeling. Reinhardt didn't even think that this boy would be able to grow up to his age. Now he pointed a sword at him. But for Reinhardt, it doesn't pose any threat. From one person, the sword simply crumbled in Therion's hands, and with that, he felt a strong pain. Reinhardt decided that he had a new toy that would now entertain him. Vallette woke up thanks to this. She fell asleep and remembered the story. Of course she assumed, but she wasn't sure that this child was really the main character of the original novel. The main characters of the novel, Therion, thanks to his excellent fencing abilities, was accepted into the Leon family as an adopted son, and he inherited the family line. The clues were so confusing that the blue eyes, Reinhardt's words about having a talent for fencing, and the fact that the boy was locked in a growth chamber were lost in the general background. Vallette didn't understand why she only now remembered such important things. Then the interest in him would double. She thought that she would finally be able to live peacefully. She needed to go right then. Today, she wouldn't be able to get enough sleep again. Into the room remembered the smell of pre-dawn air and the smell of blood. Vallette immediately understood who came to her. Of course it's Reinhardt. I wonder if he ever sleeps. It's not even morning yet, but he came to her. His clothes were stained with blood, but he still asked Vallette to hug him. She, of course, refused him. It was so cruel he immediately got upset. But she told him that when he comes, he has to wipe off the blood because she doesn't want to go out dirty in it. With a click fall, his clothes were immediately cleaned. He is a washing machine with excellent characteristics. He finally came up and hugged his hostess. After all, they hadn't seen each other for so long, he was finally able to stroke her hair. If she's not sleeping now, then I'm suffering from insomnia again. Reinhardt was angry, thinking that it was all because of this bastard, and already regretted that he hadn't killed him right away. He put the lady to bed and suggested that they sleep together, since he too had difficulty sleeping lately. Vallette asked. Has he gone crazy again? Yes, a little. Reinhardt kissed her hair. His face looked tired. She allowed him to lie down next to her, as expected of her. And when she woke up, she opened the door to the loud screams of the maids. They had just entered the room after me and were also shocked. And immediately, a lot of people started running into the room. I didn't understand why and what was going on with their faces. What were they even looking at? And then she saw Reinhardt sleeping peacefully next to her, and everything fell into place. She thought he would leave, but he was still here. Vallette tried to explain in words that everything was not at all as they might have thought. Reinhardt woke up and hugged the lady, and in the end, everyone thought about the same thing. The Duke asked the servants to leave the room. He was going to deal with the situation himself. Vallette said again that everything was not as they thought and tried to break free from Reinhardt's embrace. And his face changed. It was irritated. Apparently, the people here are not familiar with the basics of etiquette because you can't wake up the hostess while she's sleeping. Vallette said that she was not the mistress here and that he should calm down, but Reinhardt said that in that case, he could make her the mistress. After all you need to do is kill the Duke. Everything didn't go as planned. The Duke, although he saw it for the first time, immediately recognized that this was the owner of the tower. This is a force beyond expectations. and he was more careless and arrogant than the Duke expected. Reinhardt tried to attack for the first time. He was so opposed. The Duke also used his tricks. He froze Reinhardt's hand, which made him very angry. The Duke was a very mature man. Although he looked young, he could even give advice to Reinhardt. If he has power, he should know how he will wait for it. Duke Alchemist is also of the highest level, although it still doesn't compare to Vallette. A person not involved in alchemy would not try to do the impossible and lead the Union of Alchemists, so it was obvious. But of course, this is a secret that none of me knows about, so it seems to me that I asked for assistance. Reinhardt laughed. He was wondering where his mistress was hiding, but she decided to hide under the soul of the former king's rat. Reinhardt was amazed by his mistress's ability to gather around her all the most interesting things. It was already starting to irritate. Vallette told him to stop and get out of here. Besides, she woke up and wanted to wash herself. Reinhardt, without leaving the role of her former servant, offered to serve her. Well, she just chased him away then, and the Duke also left. In the corridor, he told Reinhardt it was really time to leave. Breakfast was already getting cold, but he apparently didn't want this. Estate seemed curious to him, and they were here, but they weren't happy that they didn't even offer to join him for breakfast. The Duke said that the rude man cannot sit at his table. These words upset Reinhardt. He doesn't remember doing anything rude yet. Such threats are called rudeness in society, but the young owner of the tower apparently knows too little about this. Then, he asked what he had to do to get to that precious dinner table. Maybe kneel down and bow his head? The Duke was shocked at how traumatized this child was. Before he could answer anything, Reinhardt was already about to kneel down. The Duke sighed heavily and said that he could have simply asked. Reinhardt should have asked if he could join the meal just standing up. He didn't have to kneel down. Reinhardt couldn't understand then. He thought he had to pay something to have breakfast together. Then he gave the Duke a high-level alchemist stone as payment for the food. Apparently, alchemists need that. But the Duke said he didn't need it. Reinhardt apparently doesn't know how to ask, so the Duke simply took pity on him. One extra plate on the table isn't something you should pay for at all. Reinhardt still didn't understand anything, but he was pleased that he was finally able to have breakfast at the same table with his beloved mistress. When they could eat, there was a magic tower in the room together. They couldn't do it because all sorts of fools bothered them. The Duke asked Reinhardt what his relationship was with this child. After all, he was older by a year. Reinhardt has long since stopped defining attitudes, so I don't even know what to answer. But if it is necessary to give an answer, then he can say that they are connected by a relationship of complete acceptance and the ability to endure each other, and the Duke has no place in this relationship. It was a quick warning. But he didn't even think about it. Then he asked another question: how Reinhardt knew that Vallette was here. Then something happened that she had already managed to forget about. This is the same bead, and the seal is on her heart. But Reinhardt did not intend to hurt her, and did not want the lady to be afraid. Obviously, it was a way to keep her, but at the same time it protected her, wherever it is. Whoever kidnapped her with the help of this bead, Reinhardt will always know where she is, so this thing can be said to protect her. He uses such a dangerous thing as a children's beacon. But really, thanks to it, Vallette feels completely safe. She shouldn't have said that because Reinhardt only became too happy. It even ruined her appetite. Reinhardt asked the lady why she thought he hadn't rushed in pursuit when she ran away. She thought that he decided to give her imaginary freedom. He felt sorry for her because even after getting out of the birdcage, it would remain in captivity. Reinhardt hadn't even thought about it before, but it made him smile. Sometime after breakfast, Vallette went to try on a dress, and she had never worn one like this before, so it was a little awkward. But it was very difficult for her. She needed this dress to attract the attention of the Imperial family. As soon as she received the dress, she took out the potion, which managed to make it was as payment for the purchase of everything necessary, and to cover living expenses. Vallette doesn't have any personal money, so she decided to pay with potions. Vallette thought that he was unhappy that the payment was insufficient, and she was even ready to pay him more. The Duke felt as if he had been hit in the back with all his might. Hear these words, it was really painful. Vallette seemed to be used to being cared for, but no one knew that all this care was translated into cost. He said that there was no need for this. Now he realized that this rapprochement of his was wrong for me. He thought that she would understand everything. But he made a mistake in his choice and suggested correcting this relationship. But he just wanted to help Vallette and he didn't need payment for it. Then she finally understood that he knew what he meant, and that was pity. The Duke was shocked. He didn't mean that at all. How could she even think about such a thing? People usually don't like this word, but Vallette didn't mean it badly at all. Anyway, she thought she understood everything correctly. However, it was somehow awkward to receive kindness without asking for anything in return. So she wanted the Duke to accept these potions as gratitude. It plunged his memories of events from many years ago. Vallette at some event showed how easily she can create potions. Everyone was delighted and surprised by her abilities at such an age. Vallette carried out her father's orders like a dog. This was the first time the Duke saw the valet, and it was more than years ago. Perhaps in the eyes of others she looked amazing and blessed, creating with her small hands and elixirs of the highest quality. But for the Duke, the shining Vallette was just a child. To a child whose childhood was taken away, suffering from exploitation, who were better suited to drawing scribbles and singing songs instead of complex spells. When this show ended, Vallette went somewhere, and the Duke immediately followed her. And then he heard some conversation and decided to hide. It was the voice of the Count, and he was scolding her for not finishing the circle and for missing the formula when reading it. Although she apologized, he still called her a loser because she could have embarrassed him in front of the Emperor. And as a punishment, he said that she would go hungry for a day, and you had to write down a table of the chemical formula that she couldn't draw today, and for her to sit on her knees in her room thinking about her behavior until he returned. And now he needed to see. Vallette was left completely alone. She looked so upset, and the Duke was already thinking of going out to her. But he thought she would start crying. But it turned out that Vallette started cursing her father and wishing that he would stumble. Then he heard something else and was very scared that someone could hear these words. The Duke didn't want to scare her at all. Now he came to meet this child, and she asked us not to tell our father what she had just said, and the Duke promised that he wouldn't tell. Then he really inspired confidence. This was their first promise, and then the conversation quickly started between them. Vallette, I told her that she wants to grow up quickly, and that's the only way she can become free because now she lives like she's in prison. But she really wanted to escape to a normal, quiet place and live a calm life. The Duke felt very sorry for her. As a gift, he gave her a big candy and told her to hide it and eat it when it disappeared. This is the only thing he could give her now. But he promised that when he becomes a little stronger, he will definitely help her. This guy was so strange, but Vallette was glad that she met him. She thanked him for the candy and said, "That is, with pleasure." At this moment, she said goodbye to him. The Duke was reassured by the fact that she was still beaming, but he was already worried about her situation. But so many years have passed and now this glow has disappeared. Now it feels like he is talking to a doll. Now he understands a little why the owner of the magic tower said so. He knows that he is already broken, but the knave has not even come to self-awareness. Now the Duke has finally met her, but all he can give her is protection from the Imperial family, and it's really a pity. He explained to her that he bought her all these things for his own reasons, and there was no need to pay for them. Therefore, when she had some desire to give him something too, then he would accept it. He will be delighted with any gift that Vallette gives and will look forward to. It was too difficult for her to understand, but she agreed. He suggested that they finish this conversation and maybe she would have some questions. He thought that she would be interested in the alchemy that he used yesterday, but the owner of the tower that yesterday's unusual technique, Vallette was a little surprised that the light during incontinence was different from hers. She saw for the first time that it turned out to be ice, like at the beginnings. The Duke made sure that he played, gave her limited knowledge. Alchemy is as amazing as magic, and to this family, amazing power. It is not limited to elixirs alone and sometimes can create a serious threat. All this time, Vallette was learning to transform the methods of alchemical extraction, the same as saying that she learned nothing. Learning more, she will become a serious threat to the Imperial family. It was time for the questionnaires and Duke Karl Dolphin came with his companion, Vallette Delight. No one expected to see her here. Besides, I will put her on the wanted list. Even the magic tower was looking for her. So what is she doing here? She could be a killer. So why is she acting so casual? Duke Leon could not stay away, and he approached Charles because he wanted to talk to him. Karl couldn't just leave because there are too many eyes around right now. You can't leave Vallette right now. Duke thinks it's complete and great. He couldn't understand. But Karl is worried about the child, so he can't leave. Then Hertz turned his attention to Vallette, and she introduced herself to him. Duke didn't even know that the child that Karl wanted to help so much years ago would turn out to be Delight's only daughter. He kept wondering what kind of child he was that he couldn't even touch with his finger. But now he realized that this was a truly important person. Vallette said that it would be okay if they went away to talk alone. She would be nearby, so she would wait. Today, she met Duke Leon for the first time. New often heard his name because he is to me than Empire, and another Duke, great invincible commander idol. Many swordsmen, he, coming out of discharged quarantine, on the hero to his honest, faithful character and served a good reputation in the novel. It was he who saw the potential of Therion. Vallette also heard that he is a man of few words and loves alcohol very much. Even now, he has a drink in his hands. When both dukes stepped away from everyone to talk, the duke used formal speech as usual, but Charles was still respectful because they were at an official reception. Carl told his friend that he would protect the jack of this child. Yes, of course, this is not an easy task, and by doing so, he would set the Imperial family against himself. But for him, it was inevitable. Carl is very ashamed to tell him the child for being so late and not being able to help her earlier. Duke changed dramatically. He looked, "You told Carl to turn around." Vallette was looking for something to drink because her throat was dry. She stood near the table and didn't know what to choose. It was left here to be drunk, so she decided to take one glass, but Duke snatched it right out of her hands. He said that she couldn't have alcohol. She was surprised and said that she was already an adult, but he still forbade it. And then, the Emperor and the Crown Prince arrived, as well as the head of the Alchemists' Union. Everyone immediately made way for the Imperial family and bowed. But the sounds of footsteps died down while everyone stood with their heads down. The prince approached the valet. He did not expect to see her here. It was sad that he didn't find her so quickly in this crowd. Vallette couldn't hide from him. Before she could say anything, he happily hugged her because he had missed her so much all this time. And now she had finally returned to him okay. He was so happy that I hugged him while the others watched all this. Vallette said that it was too much. Yes, she remembered the principal. He was so happy that it was so rude that he immediately apologized. He heard that she escaped because of the tower increase, and he is very glad that she was not hurt anywhere. While he was chatting with her, Vallette looked at the Emperor and the alchemist Killian. Unlike other alchemists, the Imperial Association of Alchemists has official status. The Emperor was of course glad that Milrod finally managed to meet his "I won't stay. It's impossible to hold back the fans present, so it's time to go to our seats. Today there are unexpected guests here, whom even the Emperor is glad to see. This is a wonderful day." Emperor Magpie said he would like to have a private conversation with Duke Dolphin and Lady Delight, and Duke may join in if he wishes. One way or another, the day promises to be difficult. The banquet continued, and they retired to the Imperial zone. Duke Delphin said that he was now acting as the patron of Lady Delight. This was very unexpected because they had not had any contact before. He had a hard time. The Emperor is extremely glad to see that Vallette got up and unharmed, and he will get sick what happened to her father. But Vallette understood that this was not regret, but rather annoyance from the fact that she herself should have been useful in the group, deviated from the Emperor's course. The Jack simply can't do anything if you ask for a treasure without seeing its value. The angry treasure will break the box and the jewels. The Emperor only recently learned that the Count's family had an owner of a magic tower, although no one knew it. But the current owner of the tower has crossed all boundaries. No one will even be surprised if a war starts. No tower owner has ever slaughtered an entire family of aristocrats. The current owner has enormous power, but they use it as they please and too emotionally. Vallette also agrees that Reinhardt is overdoing it. He was not embarrassed to ask if it was possible to buy the entire Imperial family. The Emperor also wanted to meet someone. Vallette. It was Killian. He came up to her and extended his hand. As soon as she touched him, she felt this earthly hand, which is difficult to even call human. The Emperor said that now that they had met, Killian would be able to take the Alchemist Association to a new level with Lady Vallette, which came as a surprise. The Duke immediately intervened and said that the lady did not yet belong to any organization, even Vallette. Take it shines the Emperor included her in his future plans without even asking her opinion, and once not, that went. It is going to clarify something else. She asked the disgust of the Crown Prince, but now that the family freak Delight fell, she planned to tear up the paper. Suddenly, the Duke grabbed her hand. His face looked very much because she said something that shouldn't have been said. Vallette looked at the Emperor's face and she was also scared. She realized that she had crossed the line. The right decision was to keep quiet right now. And the Duke told the Emperor that Vallette had experienced many difficulties in her stable age, so her words were dictated by deep-rooted mistrust of people. The Emperor laughed and said that anything can happen. He could understand, and considering the Count's crime and the owner's character, it was not surprising that Vallette had become so But nevertheless, Lady Delight is still young and therefore it is possible for me to realize. But the words that flew out once can no longer be taken back, so that in the third, there is that to go out cautiously. Vallette had to remember that her word alone could change her position radically. The power of the one who rose to the emperors was enough to hold her back. This was a direct threat, which meant that Valletta's freedom was in his hands. And yet for the sake of her goal, Vallette will endure anything. Be it a threat or something else she changed before the emperor. She told me that she was too worried. That's why she said this, but she will always keep his advice heart. And the emperor was glad that he was able to reach her heart. The dukes aged by years due to the stress they experienced, but fortunately everything returned to normal. The emperor said that their family is concerned about the origin of the knave. I will not protect her. So how about we continue preparing for the wedding as planned? Vallette had discussed this issue with the duke in advance. He assumed that today would be the day of the ball and such an offer would be made. So she had to come up with any excuse to refuse. For example, to say that she wanted to stay in the duke's house because of the excuse that he would take care of it himself. Don't think about it. They have no excuse to detain her, so she will be able to get out of it for the first time. Vallette thought it would really work if she played the victim of Reinhardt's tyranny. And she said she wasn't ready yet with such an inconspicuous face. The prince, who had been happy just a few seconds ago, was in shock. The duke said that the lady has not yet overcome the consequences of the tragedy. She is undergoing rehabilitation together, so she needs a little more time. The emperor believed that all this could be done in his palace, but the duke was the first to take her under his protection. And besides, she herself wants it, so he wanted to continue to bear this responsibility. The emperor, of course, didn't like it very much, but Vallette said that she herself asked the duke about this video. She can't sleep at night and is tormented by a nightmare. She doesn't want the Imperial family to see, I think, broken. The emperor asked his son what he thought about this. Milrod was upset and depressed. He didn't understand why Vallette wasn't even looking at him, when even this owner of the tower I do not know cruelty hospital. She looked into the eyes. Then Milrod. He thought all that she never even called him by name. It really broke his heart. Vallette could have just asked for his help, but why did she go to the duke? Milrod Shellens. He is too soft as weak to use him as a shield. He could never protect her from the emperor's friend. It was for this very reason that Vallette had not asked him for help, and she wanted to draw a line right now for her sake and his. She said that the prince had always walked the right way, and that's why she wasn't sure how much he would accept her. She didn't want him to be spoiled by the world because of her. It was better for him to continue to follow his own path. The only thing he could say was that Vallette should follow her sincere desires. If she wants, then let the duke protect her. However, it must not forget that she is the bride of the crown prince, who will become empress, and wherever she is, and whatever she does, it must not forget that she is a person of the Imperial family. At this point, the meeting ended and they left. Only alchemist Killian remained. He said that he had been looking closely at the talent of the Jack and knew that she could make up to 2 elixirs of quality. It was good that the Count was happy. Should he be glad that her talent was not fully revealed? Vallette was unpleasant that the chemist at the first meeting allows you such frivolity in communication. He was too rude, but he said that he would be more careful. He was a little nervous before the assassination attempt to get such a talented ward. He was looking forward to the next meetings, although now more and more, but it seems the emperor did not remain so easily. All this time, Vallette held hands with the duke and only now let him go. Duke was silent all this time, but he was very her, and now, stroking her head, said that she should not provoke the emperor. She should be more careful. They forgot to warn her beforehand about the emperor, but now she will know how to behave. Seemingly a merciful emperor, to occupy the same he cruelly dealt with his parents and brothers. So do not underestimate him. Vallette didn't delve much into history, somewhere at the level of large, I don't know, like the founding of the empire, and blocked access to everything of yours so that her heart would not become infected. Carefully generate her family, and it is very sad. Duke said that it was time for him to leave, and for them too, in principle, since they showed their faces, they could go home. We're already on our way home. The Duke told us that he and the second Duke witnessed how the current emperor shed rivers of blood. The memories are still fresh in my memory. The current emperor was born the youngest, and did not even have the right to the throne. He will be kind in appearance, but in reality he was quite an ambitious man. This is what Mother Carl, who was the former head of the ducal family, said when she first met the youngest prince. said that a huge snake was born into the Imperial family, and he would do anything to become a dragon and ascend to heaven. And everything was exactly as she said. The very first thing he did was slander the crown prince and made him only touch, and later covered just a few words to split the court and raise a rebellion. But troubles never come alone. It got to the point that people started dying everywhere for no reason. The Imperial palace plunged into chaos and no one could do anything. The whole world of the common people fell upon the Imperial family and the Emperor. It was a complete mess. The people needed a leader who would lead everything. But in all this, all our principles of amazing collection, a young man who had barely turned years old and calmly united the aristocrats, and the devastation in their own safety provide precisely the people. And then everyone realized what calmness and mercy the prince possessed, so he became emperor. But in this deep love for the people, there was no sincerity. The face of a man capable of using other people's feelings no different from Reinhardt eyes that belong only to someone who is capable of seeing right through a person. The younger principle of the alchemist Killian's rule to investigate how things are, and soon the world regained its peace and people shouted that all the curses had receded only thanks to his kindness. Vallette did not know this, and now she understood how big a mistake she had made when she spoke to the Emperor. And she only saw more clearly that no matter what method she used, she would still be forced to enter the palace. By the way, she didn't tell the Duke about the elixir of the highest quality, which Killian knew. He was a little upset, but I understand that it's funny to ask for trust when only so little time has passed since they met. But nevertheless, we watch Vallette, thereby wanting to say that she doesn't have to be so suspicious, and she said that she does not trust freely. We are friendly if the Duke wishes not to arouse her suspicion, then he must ask for something in return. Of course, she understands in her head that he has good intentions and thoughts, but she can't get used to it. This is her life and Reinhardt's too. They are very similar. She can't say that she doesn't like this guy, even though he clings to her, but she doesn't push him away or hug him simply because they are too similar. Talking about this, she realized that she was more confused than she thought. Interestingly, will she manage to get confused once before she dies for some reason? More than him? Or she applied to live a normal life? The more she distanced herself, it would have been better if Vallette and Reinhardt had met an adult like Duke Delphin a little earlier. I felt a huge amount of guilt. This child was already destroyed during the time he made her wait. Reinhardt stood on the roof of this carriage. He clearly said that he would appear as soon as his name was called, and now he was here, but it seemed no one was waiting for him. Vallette got out of the carriage. She was so tired and hoped that she would be able to sleep soundly tonight. The Duke extended his hand to help her out. But before they had time to touch, Reinhardt suddenly appeared and hugged Vallette. He used magic, leaving a small magic circle on her neck. Vallette fell asleep at that very second. Reinhardt knew her very well, so he did it. Such days are unusual for Vallette, so she was tired, although the hostess could not be honest, but he had to help her get some sleep. Because slaves exist only for the peace of mind of the mistress. At first I was worried, but then I calmed down when I realized that this child was just sleeping. By the way, it's more like on the go. I wonder why his mistress collapsed with such fatigue on her face. He directed ice spikes at Hertzen, and he said that he had done nothing of the sort and provided for her kindness, so there was no need to suspect anything. Reinhardt was irritated. He still could not understand that to pursue this Duke to Mai, that to stop building and always kind and be more honest. Reinhardt was sure that it was the ability of the Jack that he could not master that was thirsty for the Hertz. Of course, he did not answer this and decided to end this conversation. Reinhardt asked if the Emperor had already set his sights on the mistress. The Duke said that he had, and he was not going to give up. But Reinhardt won't give up either. These greedy people think that the magic tower is not a hindrance, but they are wrong. All this time they were walking together to the Jack's room, and only now the Duke noticed some terrible smell. He asked why Reinhardt smelled of blood. He said that he was on the battlefield. The Duke didn't understand what war he was in because there is no war in the Empire now, but Reinhardt said that tomorrow morning the world will find out about everything. And he also really wanted to tell the Duke not to try to force them into the framework of his real life. He meant himself and Vallette because they are different. Besides, he doesn't want to be broken like them, so Reinhardt advised the Duke to give it up. If he felt he couldn't cope, he could do it at any time. Then Vallette will leave everything, and in the end, only Reinhardt will be the one she can rely on. This is exactly the scenario he always dreamed of. The Duke asked if Reinhardt had never wanted to see her smile sincerely. Had he never thought about what it would be like for her to be abandoned? She was broken and crippled. But Reinhardt seems to be only glad of this. He liked the mistress, and only then will he be able to possess her, broken. Reinhardt is doing some very strange things in the tower, so much so that even Baltir Warlockset asked the gold to stop. Reinhardt wasn't going to stop. He kept doing it until a being stronger than him would appear. It was very unfortunate, because the magicians had been waiting for the owner of the magic tower for so long. Reinhardt, I am so merciful to listen to the yapping of some old man. So the battle began too. Baltir wanted Reinhardt to know despair, because strength is not everything. After these words, the owner of the magic tower, Baltir. Even that same morning from that moment, Reinhardt became the owner of the tower, which marked the beginning of mysterious events. People began to die unexpectedly, drying up to the state of mummies, and the people called this disease a curse from God. The consequence was walking corpses. They are sources of horror and spread diseases throughout the empire. At the same time, in every corner of the empire began to happen murder, similar to the carving of the estate of Count Delate. And the reasons for all the disaster and people named one person, and soon all the people of the empire turned their swords in his direction. It was in another dream of Valia Well. When she woke up, surprisingly she was very rested. Aaron reminded that she was in the carriage, but how did she end up in the room? The answer was the only one. It's that bastard you congratulate as usual. And yet, thanks to this, it remembered the original story. In the novel, something similar happened. God's curse? And the living corpses said that in the times when the external emperor was still a prince, something similar had already happened. The Duke suspects that the initiator at that time was the emperor. But how? How could a 12-year-old boy not be able to do it alone? And already the dead and the killer of only people. This means that he had a patron that no one knew about. Vallette suspected two people, Baltir the Warlock and Killian the Alchemist. What if one of them teamed up with the Emperor again and spread this curse of God? Then who would be their obstacle? Even excluding the original for the Emperor Vallette has already become a stumbling block, and now she is going along the path of the original with only a small difference. Although late, but the Count's family was destroyed and Therion following the plot, nothing to learn the art and fencing, albeit in a different way. That is why Vallette was sure that her death was only postponed for a short time, so it was too early to relax. Oh, but she still ran around to cope, because once she had already managed to avoid death, first of all, you need to find out about its chemical formulas that can deprive you of body parts, and find out in more detail what started these mysterious deaths. Vallette tried to remember what the ending of that story was, and only one thing came to mind. The image of Reinhardt silently looking down on the ground at the absolutely magical tower. He won't just disappear, like it was in the novel. Vallette couldn't remember anything else, and why am I even thinking about this? And now there was another problem. That she continues to think about him even in her dreams. But then she couldn't think that she would have more to worry about than this guy. Now, and all just because of a gift. Vallette slept like a log all night. But after taking a bath, a runny nose came to her senses. But she is still bothered by how coldly she treated the Duke yesterday. He helps her so much. And now she was ashamed to look him in the face after everything he said. Just as she was about to head down the stairs to her room, she met the Duke. He wished her good morning, but his face was so pale and tired. Obviously, he had slept very poorly. She said that last night he showed up to visit and we didn't just chat a little. But now the Duke had an important question for the valet, but first he suggested eating. Said that Duke Leon would also be present at the breakfast. Vallette was not at all against it. As it turned out, he was already waiting for them on the summer terrace, but not for long. Vallette thought that he was the same guest Duke from yesterday, so everything was fine. They got together, and the Duke wanted to know first of all why Vallette wanted to open her own store, because she didn't tell him the reason. She wants her shop to be needed by ordinary people by using her trust to protect themselves from the Imperial family's friend. Holds, of course, assumed such. Alchemy is an excellent tool. Vallette he will supply simply we peoples and necessary, and they risked will sacrifice himself for her and these elixirs, but thought that this is a deal. But the Duke didn't look so sure about it. Of course it would be great if everything listened to the way Vallette wanted, but what if someone died helping her? Vallette thought that it would be a personal choice of the person, and there was nothing wrong with that, but she thought that it was not worth answering like that. She decided to say that she hadn't thought about it yet. Then she goes, Duke told her to think about it. Vallette still said that in such a situation nothing can be done because everyone is using each other, pursuing their own desires. Sir Duke imagined himself in the place of the deceased's family, how they would feel at that moment. Vallette couldn't even imagine this because her family would only be the deceased count, and she somehow didn't care, and it seems the duchesses couldn't accept the answer that nothing could be changed anyway. Duke began to understand why his friend had not slept all night and spent it in thought. He asked if Vallette really had nothing dear to her. In fact, there really were some at one time, but they were all dead. They were not to the father's liking. Duke asked what she felt at that moment. Vallette thought that it was in vain that she let them into her heart, that the ridiculous sympathy of such weaklings like her was nothing in front of real strength. Charles gnashes his teeth, but Vallette understands what the Dukes are trying to say. Basically, they want her to minimize the sacrifice because the family of the deceased will feel bad. But she is not going to change the plan, because this does not raise the part for her safety. There was a deathly silence and the Duke went away somewhere for a short while and then returned. He was glad that he brought it with him. There was some kind of bundle in his hands. 2 eyes were not visible. The situation was very frightening. Even holds on to the one who knew nothing and was very scared for Vallette. An unknown creature jumped into her hands. If it was a lethal weapon, she would have already died. But it was only a snow cheetah. It had arrived on one of the Duke's ships and was previously an endangered species. Vallette suggested taking him to a place where he could be better taken care of. She didn't understand why he was there. Duke Leon said it was her gift. She should take care of it herself. Vallette was as shocked as Carl. Vallette immediately began to refuse and say that she could not accept him and could not take care of him. But the Duke patted me on the head and said that no one else would have to die because Count Delight was no longer here. These words sounded very calming. And that's how Vallette began to live with this little creature, the snow cheetah. She didn't know what to do with him, or how to handle him, because she was afraid that he could fall at any moment and die just like that. She didn't even know if she deserved the right to raise him. It turned out that this is an unusual cheetah. The size of the snow cheetah is directly proportional to the care given to him, how much love the jack will give him. That's how he will grow up. Now he is still a baby, but Vallette did not understand how the predator could be such an affectionate and tame person. Perhaps that is why he accidentally ended up on the ship. During their stay at the estate, the Dukes Delphine and Duke were very willing to cooperate with Vallette. Although, of course, they set conditions for her. She asked Carlin to find out about all the infectious diseases that were plaguing the Empire. So the conditions they set for her were completely ridiculous. She had to address him by name. If she needed something, she had to ask for it. And she doesn't know why. But Leon keeps talking to her about her head, even though she's just making a request. It's probably some kind of payment. Vallette understood little, but nevertheless they provided her with the information she asked for. The disease that appeared during the Emperor's ascension to the throne was called Lost. Then, the disease God's Curse. Duke promised to find out in advance from which pores Killian is under the Emperor, so all that remains is to wait. Collecting information bit by bit, Vallette feels how the Emperor's battered head is approaching step by step. Reinhardt wasn't resting in the magic tower either. It was in real ruins now, and the Imperial family was constantly protesting, claiming that if Reinhardt didn't apologize properly for the assassination attempt on the Crown Prince and the massacre at Count Delight's estate, it would have a bad effect on their relationship. They want a written confession of guilt, additional support from a court magician, and a ton of magic stones. That's why Reinhardt decided to just ignore them. The Imperial Palace began sending Manga to Quilt, who had been with Reinhardt from the beginning, suddenly showed his voice and said that problems cannot be solved with violence and murder alone. It's funny that he learned to bark, but Quilt is ready to bark as much as he wants if it makes Reinhardt the great ruler. But it only irritated him. Reinhardt had a headache from the incomprehensible yapping and unnecessary information at the moment he was ready to burn everything that was getting on his nerves. But Quilt brought the memories of the past owners of information about the magic tower to the chosen owner. It is imperative that he experience all of this. Reinhardt was so irritated that he couldn't even visit his mistress because of all those unnecessary things. And then the magician said that the master can simply use them because they are his weapon. However, this was not a suitable option. They only got in the way, and besides, the owner does not like murder and violence. But Reinhardt wants to move her here so much that he has to make this place quieter and safer, Quilt asked. Is the chief talking about the Succor? He shouldn't have said that nickname since he too had a lot of ice shards aimed at him. Reinhardt said that they should be careful with their words when addressing their master as a mistress. He told them to call her, for example, Mrs. Vallette, which is just right, or to also call her mistress. Then they agreed to this just so as not to provoke the ruler. In fact, it was hard for him to hold back because the power was starting to spill over. His head was splitting because of the obsessive knowledge and the things that filled his brain. He really missed Jack next to him, but she would get angry if he started killing everyone for her, so he didn't know what to do. The magicians advised him to first understand the most important thing is his knowledge of his magic tower. And it is the external situation of the magicians located in the tower, as well as the situation on the floating island. It has been a long time since the magicians were raised. There was no island Spain. It had many names, but in recent years this island is called Floating, and the magic tower is called Tartaros. Obviously, this is not in Reinhardt's memory because years ago he was a slave. The magicians decided to change the subject and asked, "Why does the Lord leave so often? Could something really have happened outside?" Reinhardt said that it was not their concern. He decided to give them one task to at least somehow use them, and ordered that the two of them take turns staying near the mistress guarding her, replacing each other every hour. She will understand if they say that it was Reinhardt who sent them because of the bad situation. They immediately began to be indignant, because they were Reinhardt's servants, not that girl's, but he told them that they should treat her with the same respect. Now he had two complicated affairs. It doesn't matter whether he will study with Baltier or will start studying the tower himself. The first thing that needs to be done is the threats of the newest over the mistress from the Imperial family. Quilt was assigned to be the first to guard Lady Vallette, so he left. Reinhardt felt a little better when those bugs under his feet disappeared from his sight. And at that moment, I didn't forget that the magic circle appeared in the Jack's room. Quilt teleported to Mrs. Vallette, and he introduced himself to her officially for the first time, although it was obvious that he was very unhappy. Reinhardt, meanwhile, didn't know what he was doing that was so annoying to him. If only all the creatures causing inconvenience died, then he himself would go instead of Quilt to meet with the mistress. Reinhardt just restrained herself from tearing everyone to pieces. Vallette, meanwhile, was getting to know this magician. It was the first time she felt such open hostility. This was different from the contempt with which the servants looked at her as a child. Suddenly, the snow cheetah, as if protecting her, began to hiss and growl at Quilty. The magician did not expect that such a spiritual beast would be here, but it is not so important. Quilt said that today he and another magician's salon will guard the lady. They will change each other every hours until the master calls me the order. The gentleman said to convey that the situation is not the best, so he sent them to Vallette. Despite the fact that they are close to the master, he does not discuss anything with them. Quilt does not even know whether he has the right to call himself close at all. Vallette knew that this would happen. She thought that Reinhardt probably provoked the crown prince and the mages. The magician was surprised by her insight, and he said that it was so, Mr. Ginger, the spirit of the personal summoner of the crown prince, thereby forcibly breaking the connection between them, and decided to go to the priest of the divine powers, and also cruelly treated dozens of magicians who demanded proof that he was the owner of the tower. True, he then healed them. Vallette basically expected this from Reinhardt. He had already managed to hang the flag of retribution on himself. Quilt asked maybe the lady knows what the gentleman is thinking. The magician was very upset that the master didn't tell them anything. The Jack may have some idea what he was thinking, but it doesn't matter if Reinhardt didn't tell them. Then there's nothing to worry about. Quilt was also wondering why the lady didn't chase him away. A magician had just come to her and couldn't really explain anything. But Vallette simply understood the reason. She guessed that most likely Reinhardt also noticed this. Not only is his opponent the Emperor, but also in the Tower of Chaos he cannot act rashly. So he sent two magicians who look more loyal than the rest. A maid came into the room to say that the Duke had postponed dinner until later in order to invite the knave to go for a walk. But as soon as the maid saw some guy in the room again, she wasn't scared at all. Vallette asked the maid to tell the Duke that he could do as he pleased and she would soon come down to him. And now they were alone again. Quilt asked if it was okay if the owner placed it and found out that his presence here. Vallette tried to remember how the Duke had reacted on the day she had slept with Reinhardt in the same bed. It seems he was very upset. I'm worried about this. I didn't want the child to warm all sorts of predators on his chest. So now she thought that nothing terrible would happen. Everything would be fine. First, she asked this Mr. Assistant to wait outside. I'm going to change your clothes, Quilt said to call him by his name. But Vallette was absolutely all the same. It was important that he immediately leave the room, and so she changed her clothes. She didn't know yet why. It seems to me that I will move the dinner and suggested going for a walk. But she immediately agreed to it. Well, suddenly the spirit beast latched onto her leg and looked so sad that she left him there. She said that she would leave but would return soon. However, the spiritual beast still did not understand anything and did not leave the jack. Quilt suggested just taking the snow leopard with them, but Vallette couldn't. She was afraid that it would die after all. It was a gift for her. Quilt thought about how stupid the falcon was and explained to her that the spirit beast would not die so easily. Vallette said that no one knows who dies where. Quilt is now her guard and said that he will protect everything she owns because it also belongs to the master. Listen, this nonsense was disgusting, but the main thing is that he meant that if anything, he would protect the snow leopard. Vallette didn't know how to handle words. It seemed like she only had to touch him, and he would die. But in the end, she still took him with her. When she was going down the stairs, he finally met the Duke. He was very unhappy that again his son was some stranger. Vallette introduced the guard who was sent by the Tower Lord, and also introduced the Duke, that is, the owner of the estate in which she lives. But Quilt, he said that he was not interested in the name of some miserable falcon. The Duke tried to restrain his anger. These magicians of ignorance are not lacking. Both the master and the subordinate are ill-mannered. Vallette decided to lighten the mood. She asked the Duke if she could take this baby for a walk with her. If not, she would of course leave him in the room. It was so sweet he almost agreed, but then he remembered something. They agreed that she should ask him a little differently. Then she decided that it was easier to return the snow leopard to the room than to ask the Duke as he wanted. But he told her that there was nothing complicated about it. She just needed to move her lips and not be afraid. Vallette was really embarrassed. She looked at this waiting Duke. Her whole face began to turn even redder, and she asked Carlin to take the beast with her. Of course he allowed her, and even patted her on the head and praised her. Vallette did not understand such a reaction at all. The essence of the request does not change. She just said it a little differently. Then the Duke asked why the guards were brought to her so unexpectedly. Vallette said that it was just another whim, so there was nothing to worry about. Quilt walked behind and listened to the whole conversation. He was really surprised. These two even pretend the same way that nothing is happening. Can they really read each other's minds? Why are they so similar? For some reason, it was annoying. The Duke said that today they would actually have an alchemy lesson, but he doubted whether it was worth dragging this mage along with him. Vallette decided that it was still worth it and that he could be trusted to lead the subordinates of this bastard. Since she trusted so much, the Duke trusted her too. He opened the secret passage. Very secret passage, there was even a picture of him with his mother. The Duke said that this is an emergency exit that few people know about, and they specifically leave here in secret from everyone. Well, it's all because today Carlin is officially busy with business at the estate. Everyone thinks that he is working in his office and cannot be distracted. The mystery that had gotten out of the estate, and they sat down together and went somewhere. They were silent the whole way, but then Quilt decided to ask the lady how long she had known the gentleman. She didn't know why he was interested, but she still told him that she met him when she was about years old. Father gave a slave for his birthday and said that now this boy belongs to Vallette. On the very first day of the meeting, she found out that it was not a gift in honor of her birthday, but a time bomb that would kill her. Well, of course, he kept quiet about it. Fortunately, she didn't die, but it turned out to be a strange stalker. It was only worth thinking about him again. But she felt out of place. I asked Mr. Assistant if there were any other questions, but he was unhappy and said again that his name was Quilt. Vallette had no intention of calling him by name, and he did not understand why she neglected others when the interlocutor had a name. She said that she doesn't call anyone by their name, so it must be fair, but the magician said that it only means that she treats everyone with disdain. The Duke intervened and said, "I'd better sit silently because it's rude." Vallette decided to explain so that such conversations would not arise again. If you call a person by name, then the connection is restored and feelings appear. And when this person dies, the other will definitely feel pain, so people should not call each other by name so easily. After that, there was deathly silence. No one could say anything else. They finally arrived some hidden place from here. You have to walk because the entrance is in a deserted place. The entrance will take time, so the Duke suggested talking about old times so that the walk would not be so boring. He decided to do something simple for an hour. For example, he had never heard anything about Countess Delight, so he was interested in what Vallette could tell about her mother. It was a very unexpected question. Of course, she could have said nothing. Vallette said that she doesn't know for sure, but her father either sold something of this to the other world. The Duke was shocked and realized that she had chosen a very inappropriate topic. Vallette was something of an adopted daughter. Delight never married. Vallette was just a child born to a woman who had been in her father's arms. Carlin asked if she missed her mother. No, Vallette was with her for a short time, so she has no feelings. The father was incredibly happy. When Vallette was born with this magic circle, it even changed the mother's situation a little. The problem is that this woman was not herself. She tried to kill her daughter several times. Vallette never thought about meeting her again. I have never felt the need for this in my entire life, and I don't think that meeting would change anything. Quilt involuntarily listened to all these conversations, and then he realized that Vallette not only looked very similar to the master, they were like one person. Quilt felt as if he was looking at his master. They are both broken and in chaos. Vallette is like his female version. It is very difficult for everyone to understand her, but she does not expect this from them. After some time, they finally secretly arrived at the right place. It was the alchemist's base. Quilt noted that this system was very similar to the magic that delivered. But the floating island. Vallette was surprised that something like this could be done with alchemy, but that too is a kind of exchange. Alchemists simply change location in exchange for becoming invisible in the atmosphere. Vallette never knew that chemistry could be used like this. Her skills turned out to be much worse than she expected. Equivalent exchange adhering to this formula, you can open up unlimited possibilities, and Vallette thought that she knew everything. I only understand a little about creating elixirs. Now she is determined to study alchemy again and admitted it. Quilt quickly checked this place with the help of magic, and was even surprised because this place was created by the hands of the Sokor, but it is quite safe here. It was a praise that would have been better if he had not even said. Vallette remembered the way here, although it is quite long. The main thing is that she does not forget if she touches the stone while wearing the mark. Then the alchemical formula will be activated, which will move her here. So, in future, she will also need this mark to enter, but in order to get it, she must be sure that this thing will always be with her and will not arouse suspicion. For example, you can carve the chemical form of the heart in English. Vallette, there was nothing like that. Then, she asked if it was possible to engrave the formula on the wrist, then very individual. But the wrist, as well as, it would seem, is the best option. Besides, she will save the formula because it will be inconvenient if she loses her hand. The hand is the ideal option only if it is not cut off. The Duke, of course, didn't allow her. And Vallette still didn't understand. She still thought she was right. Then he suggested that he himself prepare something for her. Yatin, but Vallette, after thinking for a bit, refused. She decided that she would ask for the bracelet back. She meant that bracelet that the madman put on her. That bracelet tracks location, but that time she tore it off and ran away. She can ask to return the bracelet when he comes next time so that you can overcome the formula on it. Vallette did this because she understood that if Reinhardt introduced the mage to her, then the tracking bracelet was a trifle, even jewelry. She reacted so calmly to such things, but she didn't want to receive a gift. The Duke didn't rush her to open her soul. I just dared. So we weren't planning to go to the lab, but the cheetah can't go there. So he stayed here happily walking around, running around his new great domain. The Duke came up with a plan for the classes. At first, there will only be the basics, but then they will study advanced knowledge. From now on, they will do everything here that has to do with alchemies. He also prepared a special separate laboratory for Vallette. She asked why here and not in the estate. But as it turned out, he doesn't keep anything related to alchemy together, as if he's hiding. He said that hiding is a very appropriate word. His family had long ago discovered its own special constitution and passed it on from generation to generation. But the problem was the mood of this century, fear of creation, and different from ordinary people forced humanity to divide society, and the discovery of the hunt for alchemists. This led to the creation of a secret estate of alchemists. And the rest of the alchemists entered into submission to the Imperial family. Magic also found its place, and they do not leave the magic tower. And what about Reinhardt? He didn't hide, although it would have been better if he hid than experienced all this. Then he wouldn't have lived as such an exile and perhaps wouldn't have met Vallette. Now people seem to have returned to ancient times and reject everything that distinguishes them. Vallette simply could not understand this. The basics lesson turned out to be very simple. Vallette was surprised that she missed so much important in the training. And I was kind of pleased when I told her what she didn't know. Although it was a little awkward, it wasn't that bad. Vallette. I don't even remember if it was like this before, that she completely lost track of time while concentrating on something like today. Time really flew by. Vallette didn't know that life in which you don't have to worry about imminent death, no longer has to live under the same roof with a person who is dangerous to her. It calmed her down so much that she fell asleep very peacefully. Reinhardt, I decided to visit her, But he was a little late and arrived when she was already asleep. But he was still glad that he was able to see her even like this. And then he carefully laid her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. The next day in the Imperial castle, the Emperor showed his son the outrages committed by the owner of the magic tower throughout the Empire. Only it is not clear whether this is a surge of power or he is simply taking out his anger. Mirlod is sure that it definitely can't be a surge of power because the tower's master has excellent control over power. But it is probably possible that he sacrificed people to let off steam. The Emperor sent several requests for changes and corresponding compensations, but there was no response. The magic tower simply ignored the message. The prince was furious he couldn't leave it like this. The Lord of the Tower has such a powerful force and can't even contain it, wasting it on personal needs. You can't be so impudent, and you must punish him in the name of the Empire. Well, the Emperor said that this would create a problem for them, not only during the time when he was a prince. A strange disease called this was circulating in the Empire, and few people could be treated. Only they said that this disease disappeared. However, you can even use the method that and so on. Lost is a disease that one day deprives a person of some part of the body, but it is not known about anything about the disease and the reasons for its not being contagious. Therefore, they called it God's curse. Therefore, they say that in the fight, the most important thing is to take action as quickly as possible. The faster you take the medicine, the more chances you can live. But the only thing that showed an effect is apparently a chemical elixir, moreover, or everything must be of the highest level. But even in the warehouse of the Imperial family, its quantity is very small. Back then, there were a lot of good alchemists with Killian, so he managed to solve the problem somehow. But now, the Emperor slowly led him to this so that he himself would understand why they needed Vallette. But the prince did not know how to ask her for help because she was still suffering from the consequences, and besides, she had already rejected him once. Father came up and hugged. But he said that the Imperial throne judge's loneliness, the best way out is to save everyone by choosing the righteous path. But to make a decision about non-objective victims also the Emperor's lonely time. Therefore, the son must remember well that only in this way can he protect the weak people. Milrod promised that he would soon visit the Duke's estate to meet with Vallette. He was sure that she would certainly help if he explained all the circumstances to her. Asked, what if she does not agree? Count Delight raised Lady by suppressing her emotions. Will she then extend a hand to the people, sympathizing with their situation? But nevertheless, the Prince of Soot hoped that Vallette. No one ever closes their eyes to death weakly. The Emperor said that he would no longer doubt her kindness if she humbly agreed to help. He very cleverly directed his son's thoughts in the right direction for him, and the prince decided to go to the Kirch estate the very next day. But Killian will be presented with security until the matter is resolved. And in addition, in this way, the prince will not be defeated like last time. The father said that he believed in his son, and these words were enough to convince Milrod. Then he left. In fact, the Emperor was annoyed because this Vallette is such a bitch. She will have to try hard to get her. If you think about it, the owner of the tower is too fixated on her. That's why the Emperor wanted to get her to limit when I'm on the tower. And it will also be interesting to see how Milrod will behave when that day comes. Will he feel betrayed by his father, or will he be disappointed in himself? Both options are great. Whatever it is, at the moment when hopes and faith are shattered, a person reveals his true nature. But Milrod will soon find out what is reflected in his father's eyes, and soon he will see everything he dreamed of. Reinhardt had so much to do that he ended up being late everywhere, constantly teleporting to ruined and burnt expectations. The view was not the best. An empty place without a single Shura, exactly the same as in the previous areas. It is still difficult to reveal the reasons, but one thing is clear. This is not some kind of God's curse. This is a human disaster.